Good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of Oxford Preparatory Academy, May 24th, 2018, 4 o'clock p.m. open session, 4:20 p.m. closed session, 7 o'clock p.m. open session. Meeting location is Oxford Preparatory Academy, South Orange County Campus, 23000 Via Santa Maria, Mission Viejo, California, and teleconference location, Oxford Preparatory Academy, Saddleback Valley Campus, 22882 Lumont Drive, Lake Forest, California. The public, including public attending a teleconference location, are invited to address the board regarding items listed on the agenda. Comments on an agenda item will be accepted during consideration of that item or prior to consideration of the item in the case of a closed session item. Please turn in comment cards to the board secretary prior to the item you wish to speak on. Preliminary call to order. Joseph Haney, Chairman, present. Raymond Jackson, Vice Chair.
Present.
Priscilla Trichet, Secretary.
Present.
Joshua Teeple, Treasurer.
Present.
And Mary Campos, Member.
Present.
Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tonight's student performance is highlights from the Kinder Circus. Presenting is Dean Boucher.
Hello. Our kindergartners were unable to make it in their full circus garb with all the makeup and everything, and so we wanted to give you a glimpse into what the kindergarten circus looks like. So if you wanted to turn your chairs, board members, we are going to show you the first act of our annual kindergarten circus. Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed that little brief snippet of what our kindergarten circus is. We're always impressed because they are kindergartners learning all that choreography, and it just gets better, so we invite you to come next year when they're back in town. Thank you.
Thank you. Yay. That's awesome. Thank you, Dean Boucher. Do they still throw the candy out into the audience? Okay. I appreciated the candy when it was thrown out. Okay, item 4, approval of agenda for regular board meeting for May 24th, 2018. Recommend the Board of Directors approve agenda for regular board meeting for May 24th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? This motion passes unanimously. Item B, public announcement of reason for closed session. Closed session for discussion possible action. A, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, Government Code 54956.9 D4. B, conference with legal counsel, ongoing litigation, Government Code 54956.9 D1. Sub A, Oxford Preparatory Academy versus Ed Lighton Learning Solutions. And Sub B, Oxford Preparatory Academy versus Chino Valley Unified School District. Item C, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, Government Code 54956.9D2, 2 matters. D, discipline, dismissal, release, Government Code 54957. And E, public employment, Government Code 54957, position chancellor. Do we have any comments on closed session items? Well, then with that being said, we will break for a closed session at 4:20 p.m. We return to open session at 7:23. The following report comes out of closed session. First, the board authorized our current legal counsel to pursue entry into a tolling agreement with former legal counsel, and in the event that that fails, to pursue legal action for all equitable and legal remedies available to Oxford Preparatory Academy. Second of all, the board approved the elimination and or changes of the following positions. Teacher on special assignment, interim managing director, dean on special assignment, coordinator of attendance, which will be changed to a 2/10 of a job, coordinator of administrative services, world language coordinator, coordinator of facilities, and the removal of 1 computer technician position. The board also voted to not take action on the appointment of a chancellor position, and will be reopening that at this time. I would also like to propose that we move items 4 and 5 under Part 3G, items for discussion, to appear before 2? After 2? After 6? So we would go 1, 2, 3, 6, 4, 5, and remove item G8. So we would go to under G, items for discussion and or action. We would take items 4 and 5 and reorder those so that we would go 1, 2, 3, 6, then 4 and 5, and remove item 8 from the agenda.
Do you need a motion on that?
Do you need a motion?
I'll move to approve those changes to the agenda.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Next up is presentations, reports, and correspondence. We'll start with site updates, Saddleback Valley. It looks like we have Mr. Bridges.
Happy Thursday. I can't believe it's only been 16 days since our last update. And you're going to see all the things that we have done in 16 days. First, we finished CASP testing. We got through all of our makeup, so we're good on that end. In this video, you are going to see our third graders dissect owl pellets. You will see first grade field trip to the Aquarium of the Pacific, our Honor Society Mad Science Night, our lateover, where my office was toilet papered very well, I may add. Taekwondo board breaking, our World Language Achievement Awards, and the 7th grade Shakespeare Unshackled performance, which happened today. So that all occurred in 16 days. All right, so upcoming, we have some dissections occurring. We have our 6th graders are going to dissect some squids. Our 7th graders will get into the cow eyes and frogs. We have our 8th grade softball game tomorrow, an art showcase on the 30th, open house in Vabonite on the 31st, bowling with professors June 4th, 8th grade promotion, and the last day of school on June 6th. That's a lot to get in how many days is it? 7 days? 7 days. So there's the update from Saddleback.
Oh my gosh, is tonight the last night we can purchase tickets for Bowling with the Professors? Is that right? Okay.
Tomorrow. Mr. Jackson, will you be purchasing said tickets?
will be.
All right.
Yes.
Will there be bowling with Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
All right. And are those priced to move?
They are.
That's what I figured. All right, next up for our site updates is SOC with Ms. Dean Boucher.
Hi, guys. Oh, you don't need to. That's okay. I'm going to try to speak quickly because we have a very special presentation highlighting one of the very interactive and hands-on groups that we have on campus. So just very quickly, recently, I guess in the last 16 days, as Garrett said, Mr. Bridges said, we had a Muffins for Moms event, or any, influential woman in our champions' lives. We ran out of 500 muffins, so it was a very successful event. Many families came, which was great. We invite all the dads or special men in our champions' lives to come to Donuts for Dads, which is taking place coming up. We also have May 31st, our Parent Appreciation Fiesta, where our staff gets to honor all of the wonderful parents that we have on campus. We have some very special presentations and awards to hand out to them. We also had our annual lateover, our World Language Achievement Awards. We finished the CASP testing and the CAST testing, which is for science. And this Sunday, actually, at 4 in the morning, our 8th graders from both campuses are off to DC to go tour DC and Colonial Williamsburg and Jamestown. It's going to be a great trip, so they leave on Sunday bright and early, so it'll be exciting for them. Up next, I would like to introduce our ASB advisors, Mrs. Vickers and, are you guys not anymore? Okay, and Mrs. Smith. They have helped run this wonderful group they're going to get to hear from quickly.
Good evening. We're going to have the ASB members speak first. We really appreciate the opportunity for them to speak because we know the reason we're all here every day and it's for them. So I'm glad you get to hear directly from some of them. So our first presenter is Jet Fukuda.
Good evening, members of the board, staff, parents, and friends. We would like to thank all of you for this opportunity to speak here today. A few of us here will be representing our team of 30 ASB members. During our first weekend as elected members of the ASB Executive Board, we created the mission statement that you see here on the screen. Throughout the year, we have strived to consistently meet our goals as leaders of OPA SOC. Next slide. My name is Jet Fukuda, and I'm the Director of Spirit and Athletics here at OPA SOC. As you can see, this position has many responsibilities, but some of my favorites are introducing new organized sports to OPA, such as basketball. We had 4 OPA teams play in a league this year, and we won 2 championships. One of the most important things that I do is enhance student involvement and school spirit. For instance, my job is to help students to be more excited and interested in the OPA experience. And finally, I get the opportunity to announce weekly university winners at school assemblies. This year, I was able to trim down the amount of missed educational time by having every winning university do their cheer simultaneously. Something that I would like to highlight this year is the ASB Community Service Projects. We organized several student-driven donation drives. These drives helped ASB to collaborate with the OPA community and collect valuable donations. But more importantly, these projects positively impacted the community. For example, we collected Christmas toys to brighten the seasons for children in need. We brought pasta and other food items to help less fortunate families. We held a spare change drive to support children of our age in their battles against cancer. And we gathered blankets and sheets to help orphan bunnies. So how have I grown as a leader? Oh, by the way, sorry for that picture. That was at the beginning of the year. Hopefully I look a little less goofy right now. So I'm pretty fortunate to have natural leadership qualities, but this year ASB has given me the opportunity to demonstrate my ability to lead. But perhaps the larger growth in me is my development as a strong supporter. I learned that in many cases it's better to step back and let others shine. And supporting those leaders is extremely rewarding. Most of all, ASB worked as a single unit on almost all of its projects. I met many new people from several different grades, and we all learned that there's great value in working as a team. Thank you for your time. Now here's Peyton Hitzler.
Mr. LeBlanc, can you help me out? The clicker's not working. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Peyton Hitzler, and my position on ASB is Director of Student Recognition and Campus Grounds. My position recognizes students for what they do and who they are. I really enjoy my position because I get to put a smile on other students' faces. That's one of my favorite things to do. Another thing that I love about my position is that I get to work with partners. I never could have accomplished all of these goals without them. ASB now has a big impact on me and makes my future feel bright. One of my favorite highlights of the year were all the student-led activities. One of the examples of student-led activities were Monday morning assemblies. Every Monday morning, OPA has an assembly for a catch-up on the upcoming week. What I love about this is how ASB takes it all over. ASB gets to create the slides and talk about the upcoming events. I think that this is important because we are the future, and what is our future going to be if we don't prepare for it? I have grown as a leader because I have learned that while working with a team, you can accomplish anything. Our team has accomplished a ton of things this year. I have also learned how to use my time wisely and get more things done, especially when I'm busy. I have also become more organized with my projects and schoolwork. I also feel that I have become a more mature person and do more kind things. I never would have done any of this if it weren't for Ms. Vickers or Ms. Smith. It has been an amazing experience to be on ASB with them. Thank you. Next up, we have Aiden Agarwal.
Hi, my name is Aiden Agarwal. I am the ASB Vice President for our 2017 to 2018 school year. So my job as the ASB Vice President is to assist the President in any way possible and to assume his or her job should any complication arise. In addition to these jobs, I'm supposed to help lead Monday morning assemblies, prepare for the dances, and help lead any ASB-related activity. This includes leading tours of the school to potential parents and even the Capital Valley Superintendent to showcase our amazing professors in action in our great campus. Being Vice President requires leadership and people skills. It requires learning to be a mediator, but most of all, working with everyone to make sure the job gets done. When I was asked to present for you tonight, I was really torn between all the great activities ASB put on this year. The standout event to me was the school talent show. This was a very successful event that showcased the OPA student body's abundance of talent. This opportunity showed what ASB can accomplish when we put our mind to something, and believe me, we're unstoppable. ASB was solely responsible for this event with the guidance of our amazing ASB advisors, Ms. Vickers and Ms. Smith. We learned how to run and put on an event in a time limit, as well as helping our community in the process by asking for donations of pasta or pasta sauce for Katarina's Food Kitchen instead of cash. This memorable event really helped ASB to grow. This will be my second year on ASB. I've always been really passionate about leadership in OPA, helping OPA in any way I can. I always step up and lead, whether it's in class, at home, and sports, anywhere I am. This year, ASB has taught me that not everything can be done by myself, and that you can rely on others to get the job done. I'm willing to admit that I tried to do everything myself and step up and lead. This year, my goal and growth opportunity was to work as a team to execute our ideas. As vice president, I have to be able to be a mediator in discussions. We have to work together to consolidate all of our ideas to make sure everything gets done and that we as an ASB can be successful. I learned how to work with people who have different ideas than myself and search for common ground that ASB feels is fair. I've grown to enjoy and work well with this ASB. We all had strong leadership potential and great ideas. That made this year a memorable one for the students. Thank you. Next up is Josie Kirshen.
Now, before you get started, I just want to make sure that you two Blandia folks here. So thank you very much for speaking right into that microphone.
Hi, my name is Josie Kirshen, and this year I was the Director of Activities. The role of the Director of Activities is to coordinate engaging activities for all grade levels. This position requires organization and creative ideas. I coordinated lunch and recess activities, led the dances, came up with games to promote student involvement, and assisted lots of other positions to get students excited about what we are doing in ASB. The thing I'd like to highlight that ASB did this year were Friday tailgates. Friday tailgates are friendly competitions between 2 or more universities on Fridays at recess. Each university gets an opportunity to participate in a Friday tailgate. The winner of the tailgate earns their class an extra 5 minutes of recess. Tailgates have been an ongoing thing at OPA for the last couple years. Normally the classes that would come and watch the games were the classes competing. ASB wanted everyone to watch because we wanted all students to enjoy what we do. I started to come up with games that were more entertaining. We did games with shaving cream, marshmallows, ping pong balls and solo cups, jelly beans, and many more. The games we started doing were really exciting for all of the students and became a tradition that lots of champions really looked forward to. Oh my, I've definitely grown up a lot physically. I look a lot younger, but I've also grown in many other ways. OPA ASB has helped me grow this year as a speaker and as a student. I've always been pretty good at speaking in front of a crowd, but now I've learned how to maintain or manage the crowd. I've also learned how to manage my time and keep myself on track with schoolwork and other ASB assignments. I've learned that being a team player or working with other people gets the job done a lot faster. Next, I'd like to welcome up Kira Tanioka.
Hi, my name is Kira Tanioka. I'm the Secretary and Director of Publicity. As the Secretary and Director of Publicity, I make posters along with other members of ASB for various events presented by the Honor Society or school-run events. I take meeting minutes every meeting, making sure that all ASB members are up to date with what is happening. The highlight of my year was collaborating with Honor Society. There was a number of events that our ASB this year helped and volunteered for Honor Society. My favorite one was Valentine's Day cards for the seniors. I really enjoyed doing this because it included the entire school and it brought happiness to the seniors on Valentine's Day. Also, I had the opportunity to work with not only with my peers, but to work with my ASB supervisors, parents on Honor Society, and the professors. I had the opportunity to come up with a plan and execute it. OPA ASB has helped me grow as a leader by helping me with my public speaking skills, working with peers and teachers, and much more. I've been in ASB since 6th grade, and it has really helped me with my leadership skills, communicating, and planning. ASB has really helped me grow as a person because of the opportunities it presents me. ASB has really helped me realize that everyone can be a leader, quiet or not. OPA ASB has helped me grow in my public speaking skills. Next, I would like to welcome up Lauren Hassett.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Hassett. I'm Director of Student Recognition and Campus Grounds, along with Peyton Hitzler and Owen Grace. This year on ASB, we created many new programs, including Kindness Week, which was a week of kindness, and Student of the Month, which is my highlighted activity. We also shared the character trait of the month at each Monday morning assembly. This year, we created a program called the Student of the Month. Student of the Month recognized one student each month that demonstrated the character trait of the month. We collected nominations and chose a winner. The winner would get their desk decorated in some form of a gift. This year, ASB has helped me grow because it has shown me different skills, including how to manage my time and how to plan events. Before coming to ASB, I was not that comfortable public speaking. ASB has helped me develop this skill. I would like to thank Ms. Vickers and Ms. Smith because they have taught me so many things, and ASB wouldn't be the same without them. And here they are.
Good evening. My name is Mrs. Smith, and I am an independent study teacher, and I also stepped in to help Ms. Vickers with ASB early on in the year. And we are very proud of these students who have grown a lot this year, and I've enjoyed working with Ms. Vickers. She's a great leader, and here she is.
Awesome. Thanks again for your time tonight. I just want to explain a little bit just from my point of view of these rock stars that are sitting up here. The 2017-2018 school year, we held elections at the beginning of the year with a new mindset. We, as advisors, had a goal to build an ASB that worked together as a team. We continued, reformed, merged, and created the various levels that ASB is composed of. We created we have an executive board, directors, council members, and class representatives from 6th through 8th grade. After elections, the students came together with SV, and we had our first OPA ASB retreat. We constructed mission statements and participated in team building activities. From the very beginning, this group had a fire inside of them, but they didn't know yet how much power they had or really how much change they could make as students. Throughout the year, this fire grew, their confidence level following. This team took ASB to a new level at OPA and continued to have a strong, positive presence on campus. They showed compassion through all their service projects, ownership of the student-led activities, and the initiative seen from all the new events, spirit days, and ideas by having them come to life. We believe in the philosophy that every student can be a leader. It is our responsibility as a school and a community to give them the tools to grow into the leader that they can be. Mrs. Smith and I have seen them grow so much this year, and we look forward to seeing all the wonderful things they continue to bring to our campus. The fire they have will just keep getting bigger, which leads us to the reason we're holding officer elections for the 2018-2019 year next week. Our ASB team plans to hold summer retreats, get the ball rolling even earlier, and having them as leaders be the ones to greet their peers on the first day of school. We are so proud to be in an organization that has allowed this program to flourish, because every student is a leader, and it has been an absolute pleasure working with each and every one of you. Thank you for your time tonight. And I'm also the yearbook advisor, another hat I wear. I have a Rockstar representative to come up and tell you a little bit about, because our yearbooks are here.
Hello, my name is Kavya, and I'm in 6th grade. Today we are presenting the 2017 through 2018 yearbook to the board. This is the second year that SOC has a student-involved yearbook club. What I liked about yearbook was that I made new friends and learned how to work the computer for yearbook. Each yearbook will be at a special price of $25 for the board members and staff. This yearbook is a gift to the business office.
Now I'm done. Or now we're all done. Thank you.
All right, Advisory Council, you got the tough job of following up on that. So we'll start with Saddleback Valley. And who do we have from Advisory? We have Dean, Chancellor Mohawk.
Good evening, Board. Okay, so my Advisory Council couldn't be here this evening, and Mr. Trebus asked me to please report out. So our last meeting was held on Thursday, May 10th. The meeting opened with the introduction of the council's newest member, Mrs. Heather Hanks, who is now fulfilling a parent role. Aside from the regular business of the minutes, etc., the Advisory Council shared about the xylophones that had just come in for our youngest musicians on campus. That was part of the Academy Fund that they were tasked to spend. In the meantime, they also decided to update their bylaws and move their next election, instead of holding it in May, to hold it in August at the onset of the new school year, because we're looking forward to some of those newer parents and volunteers on campus to have an opportunity to be involved. The next thing was that the discussion continued for the allocation of the remaining funds that was tasked to the advisory council. That still remains outstanding in about $3,000, and they will be making that final decision at their last meeting. They wanted to make sure you all knew that they had more than the 6 required meetings for the year, that they have been busy beavers. And finally, our meeting concluded after several hours of spending time reviewing and editing the OPA volunteer policy and civility policy. They finally got their John Henry on that with all of their recommendations. And these documents have already been forwarded to Mrs. Doherty for any further consideration. And I think that's it. They're looking forward to the end of the school year, the same as the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. And from SOC?
Surprise, it's us two.
I'm shocked.
I thought you would be.
We travel in a pair.
Do you want to go?
You can go ahead.
I'll go first. Okay, so we are currently, actually, I'll start with, to touch on what Mrs. Lohoff said. We were pleased to come together with a representative from our advisory council along with Saddleback to review our input on some policies and collaborate on both of our perspectives and get that all put together in a document that you will be seeing. So we were pleased to get the opportunity to work together, and we feel good about where those came to.
And we currently have 3 positions that are now open at the end of this year for our advisory council. So we have opened up the process of hopefully getting lots of applicants who would like to be on our board to this week, and then the voting will take place, I believe, in the coming weeks. But we have an opening for a parent, an opening for a classified staff, and an opening for a certificated staff member. So lots of openings on our board coming up at the end of this year for the start of the new year. So we tried to get that going so that we would be ready to meet all your requests that will be coming, I'm sure. So that's, I think, our update.
I think that's our update.
So-
Yeah. We should have the elections done before the end of this school year, so we have our full board in place right at the get-go for next year.
Correct.
So that's that.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up is the Honor Society updates, starting with Saddleback Valley. It looks like we have Miss Anaya.
Hi, happy Thursday. I know you like it close, so I'm getting there. First of all, I would like to mention how amazing our teachers, our staff, admin have been. We had an amazing lateover. They exceeded my expectations. I stopped by to drop off the In-N-Out, and the kids had so much fun. It was amazing. So thank you so much. Next off, we have our Splash Bash, which is on 6/1. That is the last party we have for Jogathon winners, as well as our dunk tank, which I am very excited and nervous to see some of our teachers and admin in the dunk tank. So I'm looking forward to getting some pictures for you guys. We did have our board meeting on Monday of this past week. We did conduct our elections. I'm pleased to say that our board is filled. We just need one more position filled, which is the VP of Volunteers. But aside from that, all of our board positions have been filled. Our last Blackwells went fantastically. And you guys did see our science night that we hosted a few Fridays ago. The rain did not stop it. I'm very thankful for that. It was a really fun night. The kids had a great time. We had that giant T-Rex there, or I don't think it was a T-Rex. What was he? Or she? But the kids, the kids knew she was fake. Her legs were sticking out, so that was, it was pretty funny. But they enjoyed it, and we're excited to make that an annual tradition at Saddleback Valley. And then our last event that we have is bowling with the professors. The forms are due tomorrow, end of day. So we look forward to receiving some more forms from you guys. Our last board meeting of the year will be on June 1st. We'll be finalizing our budget for next year. We are adding 3 assemblies. We did book 1. It is a reptile magic show assembly. He had fantastic reviews. He books out about a year in advance, so we were very lucky to get 1 spot for the first trimester when the champions return back to school. But thank you guys so much for everything you do. It has been a really great year. I don't know if you have a June meeting, but if you don't, I hope you have a great summer. And I look forward to seeing you guys in August. Thank you.
And from SOC, Karen Leeds.
We came casual tonight, so pardon me if I am a little more casual than normal. But I wanted to just announce that we had a very successful golf tournament, and thank you to those of you who came to support. We had a lot of fun. We saw a lot of parents get excited about mostly the parking spots were the hot item again. It was May 4th, and we're still waiting on our final numbers to come in as far as the fundraiser part of it. So we're waiting on that. We'll let you know as soon as we get that. Vapa Night was a huge success here. It was a lot of fun to see I think the most exciting part and the highlight of the night was seeing the 2 deans here on campus get splattered with paint. I think that was we had the whole night, the line of kids to just splatter paint we had to shut it off because they just kept coming back for more. So we thank you both for that. It was great. Also, the collaborative artworks that the classes did, we sold those that night, and band performed, and then the science lab was open that students could walk through and see with their parents of the work that's been done. We're winding down with the year. We don't have much on the books for the upcoming weeks. Next week is our last Blackwells, next Wednesday, and our last board meeting before the summer is next Friday. We invite you to come. It's 10:30 here, and other than that, I have nothing else to report on. Thank you.
Great year. Thank you, Mrs. Leeds. Up next is CDE Special Education Division Letter of Approval, presented by Dr. Lisa Hall.
This is just a little bit of good news to share. We did get the letter from CDE indicating that they did indeed approve the plan that we submitted to make sure that we improve upon State Performance Plan Indicator 3, which means that we need to have 95% or more of our special education students participating in statewide testing. And in the 14-15 year, that was not reported accurately. So we had actually no data in there, so we had to follow through with an improvement plan. So page 3, after the letter saying that they approve, page 3, there you go. That is actually our plan. And the beautiful thing about the plan is that it was done with a team, and it will help guide the writing of the local control accountability plan. And we were happy to have the state approve it. The other documents were the documents to support the meetings that we held to draft the plan, and just support that we actually do have a student study team process that we follow and we train our teachers on. And so we're excited that the state approved our plan, because some schools had to redo them and we did not. So, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Hall. We like good news. Item 5 is updates regarding CalSTRS audit, presented by Kathleen Doherty.
Yes, and so hopefully that's going to show up. Does that show up on there?
There we go.
Not very big, but okay. I wanted to let you know that with the exception of one more piece of work that we need to do with our HR department, and that will be complete tomorrow, all of the CalSTRS audit findings have been corrected. And so now we are waiting on STRS for them to be uploaded to STRS and for them to give us the final figures. But what you see in this chart is that you see the schools that are listed for each of the findings. In the first column, you see the number of employees or the amount that is predicted to be spent if we don't know the amount, and the school sites that they were attached to. You will see the number of corrections that we had to do, and then you'll see the amount. You'll see the amount paid to date. Sorry about that. You'll see the amount paid to date. If there is no amount listed in there, it's because STRS hasn't gotten back to us to tell us the final amount. And our process is, once we do the corrections, we send the corrections to San Bernardino County or Orange County, because those are the two counties that handle it, depending on whether it was Chino or whether it was SSC or SV. And they do the uploads, and STRS gets back to them, and they forward to us with what we owe. So we have we've completed all of them with the exception of finding 3, and those will be finalized tomorrow. And then we have some approximate amounts over in the final column with some penalties and interest. So we are lower than we originally allocated, but we're going to be pretty close to that as far as the amount that we allocated to be spent for this.
Can you tell me the distinction between the column that says cite and the one that says penalties and interest, the amounts? I'm just not understanding that.
Yes, because the one that is cite is the actual amount of discrepancy that we have to pay for or that didn't get paid. And then over on penalties and interest, that is what STRS assesses us for any interest that we have to pay on unpaid amounts or any penalties that they're going to charge us for unpaid amounts.
So you have to add the two columns together to get the total exposure? Is that
That is correct. So we originally estimated it would be a little over 100,000 first time through. And when we came back through, we said, no, we're really looking at probably more than 200, but less than 300,000. And that's right about where we're going to end up, is somewhere probably around 200,000, a little more.
And where, is there any update on the status of getting any of these penalties and interest abated?
Yes, each time they are submitted, we go back in and look at that and ask for special recognition on some of the things that we've had to deal with. Some of the penalties, some of these things were caused because there was an overpayment amount credited, so there won't be a penalty or an interest to it. It will actually be a reimbursement to us, although that hasn't happened very often. It's really minor in comparison to the others, but there have been a couple instances where we have expected the penalties and interest to be higher, and they were reduced by almost 50%.
Yeah, I'm just looking at finding 7 for Chino, where the penalties and interest are actually more than the shortfall to STRS.
That is correct.
So,
That happens.
Any other comments? Are you moving the mic for a comment? No? Okay. Move on to item C, communications. Thank you, Mrs. Doherty. First one would be comments from the Board of Directors. We'll start at your end. Mr. Jackson, do you have any comments?
I think those ASB students were amazing.
Well, now you stole my comment.
And did you notice, was that amazing? Did you notice that one of them didn't even use notes? That was just a straight up presentation. That
I
was
wasn't
really,
that comfortable public speaking at HLT.
No. Anyway, super impressive. I think everybody's doing awesome. It's a great end year. I'm looking forward to some fun events. And do we have board meetings during the summer?
Yes.
The fun continues all
Oh, yay.
11 months of the year.
And you guys can watch on video with your PJs on.
Duly noted. Ms. Trichet, do you have any comments?
No comments.
All right. Mr. Teeple, any comments?
Nothing that doesn't echo Raymond's comments.
All right. A second for the PJs. Ms. Campos, any comments?
Nothing on PJs. No
Okay.
comments, thanks.
And I have nothing to add either. Move on to comments from the interim director. Ms. Doherty, floor is yours.
Thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the LCAP survey results that we have so far. Overall, we have had 231 responses from Saddleback and 229 from SOC, and we are still promoting more responses so we can get better data. According to the survey, the things we are doing well is communicating with stakeholders, so that's nice to hear. Helping students feel safe at school and promoting attendance. Those are some strengths that have been noted through the survey. Some areas that we are going to be targeting through our LCAP discussions because they're identified for growth are differentiation in the classroom, an overall increase in the use of technology in the classroom, and the continuation of involvement of parents and other stakeholders, in decision-making opportunities. Those are areas that we still need to grow in, and so those will look like LCAP goals. In addition, parents said that they would like to see more communication in curriculum and more communication with site safety, so we'll be focusing on those again as LCAP goals. Let me see if I can bring up one piece that I was looking at over here. One of the questions that we asked this year that was a little different from last year was we asked, in addition to the core subjects of language arts, reading, math, history, and social studies, what would you like to see taught during the school day? And overwhelmingly, 80% of the respondees said they wanted to see STEAM, science, so next generation science, standards in science. They wanted to see technology and advanced technology. They continue to want to see foreign language, but they are asking to have drama and theater as a part of the school day right now. So those are some things that I will be working with the advisory councils and the leadership teams at the school sites to say, how can we make this happen? And let's take a look at what the LCAPs, how we're going to make that work in the LCAP. I appreciate the comment that Mrs. Lohoff made about they've had more advisory council meetings this year than any other year. I know that I know that SOC feels the same way. There has been a lot of work that has been done, and this is one more thing that is coming before the advisory councils as they play a huge role in the development of the LCAP as well.
All right.
So, I think they said there was one other thing I want to talk about.
Parent meet and greet.
We have a parent meet, yes, we have the parent meet and greet scheduled for the 30th, and it's going to be at both campuses. The parents are going to be able to attend at either time. One is in the morning and one is in the afternoon. No, it got changed?
The times didn't work out, so it's 4 to 5:30 on SOC and 6 to 7:30 on SV.
Okay, can you say that?
4 to 5:30 on SOC and 6 to 7:30 on SV.
Perfect. So this is a time when any staff can also come to, but we will get to meet and greet our new executive director who is sitting in the audience. So thank you for attending today. And also our new CBO who has been busy at work as well. They thought that they were going to get to slide in and kind of observe for a little bit. And the reality is they're getting their hands and feet really dirty right away. So thank you for that.
And applause for Waldo. Okay, it takes us to item D, comments from the audience on items not on the agenda. Do we have comment cards? 3, all right.
The first is a recording from Far, Far Away. Jackie Ernst.
Good evening, members of OPA's Board of Directors and everyone else. My name is Jackie Ernst. I am the parent of an OPA alumni, senior class of 2013. I'm not able to be there as I am out of state. The purpose of my message is an attitude of gratitude for everyone involved with making Oxford Preparatory Academy and our champions successful, now and as they mature. After the May 1st board meeting, I felt an incredible sense of hope for OPA and our champions. I was inspired. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. The work is not yet done. However, past efforts are now bearing fruit. I became watery-eyed and tears rolled down my cheeks. Yes, it was that good. Thank you to all the professors, to each staff members, administrators, and the board for what you do. The list of my appreciation is too long to itemize. Thank you to the parents who just love on their child, solve their homework, feed them, spoil them rotten from time to time, hold them when they have tears, and truly listen to them so they know they matter. It takes a collaborative village to bring such an amazing program together. However, so many different personalities can sometimes make things difficult. Fuses get short. Keep your eye on the prize, the goal, not the immediate messy circumstance, and it'll all work out. Trust this old lady on that one. Working at OPA is far more than just a job. It is a chosen lifestyle of creating voracious lifelong learners. Parents and all staff play a role in accomplishing this. OPA is not cut from the same educational cloth as a cookie-cutter education, one-size-fits-all, that most public schools are. That's what makes us so special. My daughter started multiple intelligences at Rhodes in Chino. She wanted to go wherever MI and Mr. Scheitz went. He was at Rhodes at the time as well. She chose OPA. Now in college, one assignment was a speech on something or someone that has made the most positive impact in her life as a child, through her teen years and even going into her adult years. Most of her peers selected a person. Do you know what her choice of topic was? Multiple intelligences, as taught by OPA and the staff who taught her. OPA taught her how to study, how to comprehend, how to be successful, to motivate herself, and to always challenge whatever she thinks is her best. As adults, we have a couple of choices. A truly phenomenal education program can continue to thrive and hold good for our kids and the next generation. Or this program can tailspin into oblivion due to strife, pot stirring, assumptions, blame games, being petty, unfounded suspicions, and mistrust. As for our home, we have an attitude of gratitude for what OPA has done for our family, for all students, and the community we serve. Thank you again, all of you, for keeping this amazing dream alive.
Next is Megan Molstead.
Not as tall, not as
You're
beautiful,
not
but
Megan.
I'm taking over for her. Unfortunately, Ms. Malstead is not with us. She had to rush for a family emergency, so I'm reading something on behalf of her. Good evening, board members. My name is Megan Malstead. I am an 8th grade professor in my 3rd year here at SOC. This will be my 2nd time speaking before the board, parents, stakeholders, and colleagues, in which I felt the need to express my utter disappointment in the new salary schedule that was approved by all of those sitting in front of me tonight. During my salary schedule meeting that took place yesterday with Ms. Doherty, I discovered that if I stayed at OPA next school year, I would receive a decrease in my annual salary. This is disheartening to find out, especially since the presentation of this new schedule was presented in such a way that all teachers would benefit from it and used as a tactic to keep the teachers at OPA versus anywhere else. After speaking to several colleagues post-meeting with Ms. Doherty, it was my understanding that it is unlikely, that in an unlikely event that a teacher took a pay cut with this new pay schedule, an additional meeting would take place with the teacher, presumably in the company of Ms. Doherty and Human Resources. First, I'm disappointed that this decrease in salary was brought up by myself in a meeting versus Ms. Doherty addressing it outright. Secondly, and most importantly, it is disheartening to have no follow-up discussion or even an attempt to schedule a meeting with a teacher who left her meeting visibly distraught. If the goals of this new approved salary schedule was to keep teachers content and maintain their desire to stay within this organization, I unfortunately stand before you and express that there has been failure in attaining such goal. In conclusion, as I am aware of the perceptions that some may have of me, I implore you to reach out to your staff as a whole, as I am not the only teacher who has brought this concern forward. If not with admin, most certainly with their fellow peers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And Naz.
Hi. Okay. So I haven't spoken to you guys in a while, so I just thought I missed you and I wanted to talk. So here's the deal.
And that microphone's totally weird. You talking to the side of it.
This way? Right here?
There you
Yep.
go.
Okay.
So like not.
Go this way.
not right in the front of it.
Right here? I don't
Chase
know.
is going to show you.
Thanks.
So, like this.
Okay, so right here.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So I'm here because, first of all, I am so appreciative of all of you guys. I'm so glad that I really do feel that we finally have a board that's amazing, that is really looking out for the school. That being said, not about you guys, but I just want to say that I went to an Honor Society meeting and something struck me and I had to say something. So it was brought up that there might be, due to the budget constraints that we're going to have this coming up year, there might be a need for Honor Society to step up and help out a little bit, which, one, I don't agree with, and second of all, they kind of blamed it on the fact that the teachers are getting raises, which I don't agree with at all. We all know what's been going on for years in our organization. We know about how we had to get the loan from, and then how we had our insurance pay for it, and how our premiums have gone up, and how, you know, legal fees for Chino and all this and that. We cannot blame our teachers' raises in any way for any kind of future cuts. Our teachers, as you can see, we all love our teachers. They deserve whatever raises that they're getting or not getting per Ms. Malstead. And it's not fair for anyone to blame them for any kind of budget problems that we're going to be having in the future or facing. We all know that it's due to everything that happened in the past, nothing to do with you guys, things that have been happening for years before. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands, that the parents understand, that our teachers, under no circumstance, are they at fault for anything. They have only been here to support our kids, and they are worth so much more. That's it.
Thank you, Naz. And although we normally don't respond to issues in general from public comment, wanted to clarify 2 items. First of all, teachers' raises are coming from other sources and not from other cuts. They are not coming from the classroom. Second of all, there is no plan to use Honor Society to offset any cuts in the classroom, and there are no cuts planned for the classroom. So if someone's saying that, I'd appreciate bringing it to Ms. Doherty so that we can clarify that, because that's not true. All right.
And just to put a finer point on that, I always worry when people talk about, oh, this budget issue. I don't know of any budget issue. So that's the first I've heard of that. Osvaldo's over there, and you don't have to speak about it, but because we're going to go through the financials here in general. But I'm very sensitive, I think, to when people bring things up. I just want to be sure, and we talk about it specifically, so we can say, hey, if we've got a budget shortfall in some category, and it's not that I'm aware of that we do, I think we look pretty good. But we'll cover that in the finance part. But
Well,
I just wanna
actually,
be sure.
a good opportunity, if you want to see that, it will be at the June 19th meeting that'll be scheduled, where we're going to actually go over and approve the budget, so you can see that there are no cuts for the classroom. All right. Moving on, items for information. That was all the comments, right, Jen? Okay. First one, Gilbert Associates, January and February review. Dr. Lisa Hall.
As a reminder, in March of 2017, we entered into an agreement with Gilbert and Associates to review our financials on a monthly basis. And so we are finally getting caught up, and they reviewed January and February of 2018, and once again found nothing to be concerned about. No significant findings is their standard comment, and so there were no significant findings related to our financials in the months of January or February. And I'll just remind everyone really quickly again that this was entered into as a backup to help with transparency, and with all of your help, we're getting there. And yes, sir.
Yes, I would like to add a couple of points as well. This analysis that Gilbert is conducting is definitely necessary just to appease our regulators and the community as well, that we have been providing the changes that we need to actually have. But in addition to that, starting last week, I'm conducting a risk assessment of both processes, procedures, finance, and overall controls as well. And I'm going to be starting a vetting of our vendors and our contracts as well. So that will work in tandem with this review. It's going to be more in-depth. This one is more of an audit that actually takes into consideration, of course, sampling. But in my case, it's going to be more. It's going to be a more in-depth review.
Thank you, Mr.
Osvaldo.
Diaz.
And I have a quick question about that. So since we're talking about nepotism and things like that, is there, as a part of our vendor package and our vendor onboarding, do we ever ask them if they know somebody at OPA?
That's actually part of the procedures that we're going to be implementing. One of them, and of course, you're going to be voting later this evening on the FICMAT policies and procedures, and that actually includes part of that, the nepotism part of it. And of course, as it's going to be mentioned, our procedures are going to trump that, but whenever our procedures are silent, the FICMAT ones will take place.
Okay.
Really quickly, I can speak to all of the vendors we have for special education services that we contract for. They complete one of our nepotism forms, so they are vetted for that. So I can speak with confidence on them. I know that we ask most of our vendors to complete the nepotism form, and that essentially certifies that they're not relatives.
And and in addition, I will be reviewing that as well.
Fantastic. Next item is salary study update, administrative and classified staff, presented by Ms. Kathleen Doherty.
So we completed the certificated salary schedule, and that was approved. Our next task is now to look at the classified and the administrative salary schedules. I don't have all of the administrative comps here because we're looking at the chancellors, the deans, and any other administrative positions, but you will be seeing the comps for the chancellor coming up in 2 other items. However, what I've done is I've taken the salaries, and what you see here is you see the salaries from Irvine, from Capistrano, and from Saddleback, which are 3 of the districts that we also used in our certificated salary schedule. And then you see their title, and underneath it you see our title, because our titles are quite different in most instances from some traditional titles. And so you can go down and all of these are listed. And then what you're also looking at here is you're looking at the entry level, and then you're looking at 20 years out, and then you're looking at the hourly entry level, and again hourly 20 years. So one is monthly salary, and then the other one is an hourly salary. And you have that for, again, Capistrano, the next one that is kind of scrolling up there. Want to keep rolling for me, Chase? There we go. Is Irvine, and then keep going, and you're going to see Saddleback. One of the things that is unique to the classified structure is that every district uses different titles. And so we have to go back in and take a look at the job descriptions to see what the job descriptions for the titles match the job descriptions that we're looking at. But I will be now creating a representative committee with a couple of representatives from both of the sites, and we'll sit down and we're going to take a look at all those and look at our current salary schedule, which I have we don't have a salary schedule, first of all, but I will be looking at the salaries from the folks that are in those positions, and we'll be putting together a recommendation for a new salary schedule to come forward at the June 19th meeting for them, based on these comps.
All right. Next item up is the April 2018 financial update, presented by Chris Williams with Charter Impact.
All right, thank you all. Raise this up a little bit. There we go. You guys just vote. I'm wearing heels today.
It's a belly button microphone.
Just get it closer to you.
That's fantastic. Great, thank you. Oh, okay, fantastic. All right. So, great. Thank you all for allowing me to speak, board. I really do appreciate the opportunity, the staff, and also the stakeholders as well. Do appreciate the opportunity to be here. And normally, I'm a very fiscally conservative guy, but I did hear earlier about the price of those yearbooks. So, board, I encourage you to buy 3 or 4 of those. You know, give them away as gifts. Great. You got a really great deal on that, I have to say. So definitely there. And just a couple things. This is my first time here. I'm replacing Andy Stern, who was with Charter Impact earlier. And I want to just give some context to what I do, or what I feel like I'm supposed to do. And really, my job is not necessarily to present the financials to you, right? Because it's not a stockholders meeting, so I don't want to ramble off a bunch of numbers. My job is to basically interpret the financials for you, to give not only the board and the staff the opportunity and understanding of the financial health of the school so they can make the decisions that are necessary to improve the school overall from a financial perspective, but also to make sure I'm educating and giving the stakeholders enough information as well so that they also can have any concerns or questions addressed themselves. So in turn, what that does is that forces the stakeholders to hold the board accountable, and then the board is forced to hold the staff accountable. So it's really very, very symbiotic. So that's sort of what I feel like my job is here to do. Secondly, in reviewing the financials for myself, I personally have not seen any sort of issue with how the school has been operating over a number of years. Right now, the financials seem very healthy to me. The school operationally has been doing well over these years, and the cash levels are very, very good. So I'm not sure exactly what those other earlier concerns that we heard earlier came from, where they generated from, but from my perspective, I don't think there's much of an issue or a problem. So I want to say that too as well. And thirdly, I'm a little disappointed that half of the room is cleared out. I thought really that everybody here be here for the financials. I thought that was kind of the highlight. But I think that's because it just wasn't. I think it's the way it's in the.
A year ago, we would have filled the room and showed up.
Oh, really? Okay, so I'm a year late. All right, great. So without wasting too much time, I'll go right into the financials here. Well, okay. That seems a little
Chase, any way you can go full screen on that slide? You can go full screen and he can just navigate up from there. Ooh, yay.
This isn't the package, though. I think the pages might have gotten mixed up or something.
And although everybody here has a copy of this packet, there's
Mhm.
folks who are watching
Oh,
the
you're
PJ
right.
the PJ group.
Yes.
They got their slippers and their
Yes,
PJs
Very
on.
lucky guys. Am I going the wrong way, maybe? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, we're going the wrong way. Wow. Okay. All right, we can do that. Sorry, PJ group. All right, so what I want to focus on here today will be a little bit different than what we're seeing on the screen here, but these are certainly some areas of highlight that should be addressed. And so there, of course, it's the STIRS issue that's going on right now that Ms. Doherty talked about earlier, which is the penalties and interest related to some past due STIRS that have yet to be addressed. I think they are being addressed right now currently. So that's something that we'll talk about briefly. And then, of course, I had a chance to review some of the earlier meetings, and we talked about the Educator Effectiveness Grant. And so just an update on that as well, which is for SOC, South Orange County, 100% of those funds have been accounted for in terms of how they're spent. And just to make sure that everyone understands what we're talking about, the school received $59,000 of restricted funds in an educator effectiveness grant. And so those funds have to be used in a very specific way. And you have until the end of June 30th of this school year, it's like a 2-year grant, to utilize those funds properly. And you had to create a plan, and the plan to be passed, and then you had to spend according to that plan. And so the school has now, and if you didn't, the kicker is you have to now return those funds. And so the school has, South Orange County has actually utilized those funds properly, and now we'll do the reporting, and we'll be in the clear, and no such issue where there about returning any funds there. The same thing for the Proposition 39 funding as well, which is funding related to an energy grant, Clean Energy Act grant. And so the school also received funding in that area as well. And that was well over $200,000, to I think somewhere around $260,000. And so it's expected that those funds also will be spent mostly this year. But they did actually extend that grant for an additional year. So you have actually until the end of next fiscal year to fully have those funds encumbered. So you don't necessarily have to spend them by the end of next year, but at least encumber those funds, and then you can spend them in the following school year. So we have some time with those funds.
Well, I'm liking you a lot so far.
But thank you.
So Andy shows up and he tells us about all this money we got to pay back, and you show up and tell us about all this money we get to keep. So keep going. This is good.
I'm buying that Bowling with Mr. Jackson ticket. All right, so the next thing we want to talk about as well are the year-end bonuses. So what we do with year-end bonus, or really with bonuses for the entire year, is there are bonuses or stipends that are paid out to staff as part of a morale boost, right? And so what we do for the year is when we anticipate an amount of what that would be. And so what we, instead of from an accounting perspective, instead of letting it all hit in one month, and it looks like a big old hit to the financials for that particular month, in accounting what we do is what's called accruing it. So we basically spread it out over the entire year, because really the nature of it is you're receiving the benefit of that for the entire year and not just in one month. So when we accrued for South Orange County, we accrued an amount of $115,000, which again was an estimated number. Turns out that the actual is going to be a lot less. It's going to be $75,000 instead. So that's actually a $40,000 benefit to the financials from a financial perspective. And then for SV, the accrual was $105,000, but the actual is going to be actually $38,000. So again, a benefit in terms of financial accounting. So what all that does is it makes your income statement, which really reports your operations, and operations is your revenues less your expenses, whatever you left over with. Hopefully the number's positive. If it's positive, it's a surplus. If it's negative, it's a deficit. So it makes that surplus, that positive number, look better. And of course, that's always a great thing. And then there was discussions about the facilities and the depreciation issue with a lot of the leasehold improvements that were sitting on your books. And again, it's another accounting thing, and I don't want to turn you all into accountants. That's my job security. The facilities, you have what's called leasehold improvements that sit on your book. Really, again, you receive the benefit of these improvements to your building over a number of years. And instead of, again, you're spending $100,000 on improvements and then it hits your P&L. Instead, you basically depreciate that over time, or you show the cost for that over time. So the rules, though, are a little different for schools because you actually can only go as far as the lease on your building is. So you don't get the full benefit of maybe 10 years or 15 years of a leasehold or something that really has a lot of value. Instead, you have to, it hits your P&L or your income statement a little bit quicker. And so it's a bit of a hit during that time period financially, so it makes it seem as if you're not operating as efficiently or as well as you normally would be. So it's just a financial thing, and it just doesn't look great to an authorizer. And that's really what's important, is that from an authorizer perspective, because that's really what's important, The authorizer looks at that as a lower amount of surplus that you have in that particular year.
Do you authorizers look at it from a cash approach, so like an EBITDA approach, or will they take into consideration that there's accelerated depreciation and that's skewing the bottom line on the P&L?
Yeah, you would have lost an authorizer with what you just said there. They're not that
They're
sophisticated.
they're just looking at the.
Yeah, there's two things authorizers focus on. Your operations, right? They want to see a surplus. No matter how positive it is, they always want to see a surplus, which means you have more revenue than you have expense. They want to see a surplus. And then secondly, they want to make sure you have sufficient enough cash to make sure you're paying your payroll and your expenses and stirs and those things. That's really their focus.
What if we have the money but we don't pay the stirs? I'm just kidding, don't answer that.
I think we all know what happened there.
Don't talk about
Would you
it.
please repeat that you were kidding?
I was kidding.
Thank you.
Right. All right.
Because the answer is fines. We're painfully aware of that.
Yes. All right, so now let's go a little bit more into depth into South Orange County. And real quick, so enrollment and attendance. Why is this even important? So schools get paid really based off of the average daily attendance of their enrollment. That's the majority of your funding. So it's extremely important that when you are budgeting, like in this particular case, you budgeted 801 students, ended up with 797 students. So from a financial perspective, you're 4 students short. If you multiply that about, let's say, $9,000 a kid, that's $36,000 that we're short in the budget. So that's something to be concerned about and to watch. The second piece of that is your average daily attendance, which is how often those enrolled kids actually attend school. Because that's the number you're truly paid off of. Not how many kids are enrolled, but how often they actually attend school. And so the school here has actually done a great job in having 98%. They budgeted 98.0, actually ended up with 98.1. Fantastic. If you compare that to LAUSD, they're like 88% attendance rate. So you're way ahead of the pace there. And other schools, normal charter schools, are around 95%. So well ahead of the pace. So I would encourage the school to continue to, and I'm not sure what sort of programs you're using to really get kids here. I did have the opportunity to read some of the hands in the back, and I see these kids really love the school, so that really helps for one. But continue to work with your staff and your teachers to continue to work with the parents to get kids here and keep them here, because that's important for your budget. And that's how they receive, and the kids receive the benefit of the financing that you receive. Right. Moving on to revenues. So revenues. If we look at the annual forecast section here and the box, and we look at the forecast revenue, we see that the school is projected to end the year with about $7.4 million in revenue. Budgeted at $7.1 million. So you can see there's like a $300,000 gap. But what I want to just highlight here is that over $200,000 of this is related to the Prop 39 funding that you received, which has been recorded as revenue. I want to highlight that because that $7.4 million looks better than it really is, because that $200,000 is something that you're only going to receive one time. It's a one-time revenue source. And I always warn schools, or just really try to make sure that I emphasize that when you have a revenue level of this, or any revenue level, and is incorporated with one-time funding, you don't want to build into your expense base these permanent expenses, right, that are supported by one-time funds, because once the one-time funding source goes away, you still have to support the expenses. So if you take that out, you're still very close to your budgeted number, which is fantastic. All right, if we move over to expenses. Again, I want to focus on the overall expenses for the year, especially since we're getting close to the end of the year. And if we look in the annual forecast section again, we see we're forecasted to have a total expenses of about $7.1 million. Budgeted at about $6.9 million. So we're about $200,000 over there. And again, that's going to be related to the depreciation that we talked about. So again, it makes the numbers look a little worse than they actually are. And taking into consideration that depreciation, which is really the accelerated value or devaluing of an asset, it's non-cash. It doesn't affect your cash at all. So it's not a cash cost to it, other than what you paid for upfront for it.
Chris, I have a question on that one.
Yes.
So basically, you're taking accelerated depreciation on that one. Is that correct?
Right.
And but if we actually can bring, and I understand accounting principle that that definitely, since we don't have security of that site, that we have to accelerate it and all of that. But if we can actually have some sort of commitment where we can basically say, yes, this property is going to be renewed, and we are actually going to be there, this effect will be reduced, correct?
Yes. So instead of taking the value of that $200,000 asset, right, which we have now sitting on the balance sheet and saying, okay, let's now transfer it to the income statement and show much worse results. Yes, if you have some sort of commitment that you can present to an auditor and say, hey, we now have a new lease, or we're in talks, and we feel like we can support not really having a big hit to the P&L for this, or to accelerate the depreciation, then yes, you could possibly justify that.
And this is a comment to the board members. That's actually what we are trying to do. So we don't have this hit and just hitting it once on this fiscal year and the next, because that's that will actually it's a big hit in expenses.
Well, one thing to consider if you're thinking about that is in the corporate world, right, not the nonprofit world, but the give me all your money world, what would normally happen is if you're in a situation where you actually have a pretty good profit that year, sometimes you would just take on extra expense for that year because, in future years, you don't have to worry about it in the future years, which you may have a worse year than the current year that you have. So something to think about as well. Maybe it is a good year to take that hit now. If we still end up with a nice surplus. It's, something to think about.
Yeah, I don't know if accounting principles will allow us that for nonprofit organizations. Definitely, for-profit is different from nonprofit, and we know that.
Yeah. All right. So now we move on now to surplus. Deficit, fund balance. So surplus, as we talked about before, is the difference between your revenue and subtracting out your expenses and ending up with a positive number, versus the alternative, which is the deficit, which is taking your revenue, subtracting out your expenses, and ending up with a negative number. That's the deficit. And for this year, the school is looking at a potential $260,000 surplus. And if we then add that to our fund balance, and a fund balance is really just a collection of all of your different surpluses and deficits from previous periods. It's all added together to give you your fund balance. And so if we add that to the previous period's fund balance of $1.7 million, you have almost $2 million of fund balance. And I like to always look at the fund balance as really sort of like your net worth. If you sold all of your assets and collected the cash, then paid off all of your liabilities, you end up with the fund balance or your net worth. So this school necessarily has a value of $2 million. And I focus less on this, just as a side note, I focus less on the fund balance. Authorizers love to do this, love to look at fund balances too for some odd reason. I focus less on the fund balance because for a school, you can't necessarily use your fund balance for anything necessarily. So let's say, for instance, you had a fund balance that consisted of $500,000 of fixed assets and $10,000 of cash. That gives you $510,000 of assets. And now let's say you have $200,000 of liabilities or invoices that you owe. Now you still have a positive fund balance of $310,000, but you can't use that $10,000 of cash to address the $200,000 of invoices that you have because it's mostly fixed assets. So I focus a lot less with the schools with fund balances and more so on cash balances and cash reserves. So just as a side note. So speaking of cash, so the school is expected to end the year with about $1.4 million in cash, which is a great balance. And I always usually tell schools to have about 2 to 3 months worth of expenses for their school, just as part of their cash reserves, or reserve for economic uncertainties, as they call it. It's just a good practice to have in place to make sure that in case there are any issues, like let's say with deferrals or emergencies that happen, that you're fully prepared and can support the school continuously without any sort of interruptions. And of course, or any sorts of terminations or anything like that that are really uncomfortable for a school. So I always encourage the schools to have to really have 2 to 3 months worth of expenses on average in a cash reserve. And the cash reserve would be something outside of your cash balance. It'd be funny, you sort of set aside, in a sense.
And can you just, in your head, I know you can, tell us, because if you say you like to see 2 or 3 months, what do we have?
Right. Oh, you know what? Well, I gotta grab my phone.
Oh, see, I like this guy. And while you're on your way back here, I'll say, because it's, all these numbers get mixed up to the point where you just want to know, do I feel good about where we are, or should I be worried? Should I have a knot in my stomach?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing.
Yep, no, you're absolutely right.
And I would like to point to the board, while Chris is actually looking for his information, that one of the conversations that we had earlier this evening, just before the board meeting, was that what we want from our back office service providers to let us know and point out whenever we have monies left missing. And I know that as we were reviewing those numbers this morning, I was inquiring about title funds, because unfortunately in the past we have not really addressed, and I know that there's been change in management and all of that, but we have been leaving on the table, both in nutrition and title funds, upwards of $100,000. And this is a very conservative estimate. And as I was mentioning to Chris and whoever our back office service provider is in the future, what we want is these items to be pointed out. I don't want to actually find that out as I'm reviewing this, but I would rather have that proactive approach of saying, you know, this is our analysis, and we believe that you can either look at this, you know, like the other grant that we had. It's letting us know in advance that we need to spend the funds, or that there's money that we're leaving on the table that we could actually apply for because of the specific circumstances of the schools. So that, personally, that's what I'm looking from my backup service provider, one. And two, of course, the knowledge. And Chris is a CPA, definitely knowledgeable, and what I want is that as well.
Yeah, and just to sort of piggyback off of that as well, is that this school doesn't have a financial problem. This school has an internal control problem. That's always been the problem with this school.
Now you said it.
Sorry.
Past tense.
I only
No,
speak the
that's a
truth.
fact.
I only speak the truth.
I love it.
Past tense.
And you know, and that's the problem that really happens when things become very comfortable. Things become comfortable, rules started getting cut, people start going around things, and then we sort of lose track as to all of our different levels of accountability.
And just to confirm that statement, yes, we had weak internal controls. We're in the process of enhancing them, and we have been enhancing them since day one, pretty much. We actually, well, yeah. Well, first of all, we of course, we implemented new internal controls and procedures via policy and procedures. Also, we are in the process of implementing the new FCMAT manual as well. So all of those are enhancements to our internal controls. And yes, Chris, you were right that in the past we had that issue, but we are remedying them as we speak. And
Yes.
we have
No,
been
I know
working
you
on that.
are. You know, I've worked with Kathleen before. I know she does fantastic work. I only had lunch with you. You picked up the check, so I love you. So yeah, certainly. So I know you guys are really, truly are. And it's great to have policies. And one thing I do remember from the last board meeting is that there were policies even related to like how the educative effectiveness grant should have been recorded, which wasn't. But it just wasn't followed. And I think that's why and I would encourage, and I've actually put together a couple of new tools, that there should be some additional tools, again, to make sure that the board has information. Like, for instance, every board meeting, you should have a list of transactions outside of just the check register. Right, the check register is fine, and you know that there are certain levels of security around the check register, right? Because it goes through another back office company, and they process the checks. But then outside of that are EFTs and ACHs and other things that you're not aware of.
Are they here? Are they here in this packet right now?
They are in your board packet.
They're here now?
Yes,
But they've not been here before?
Right, that's correct. They have not been there before. And I just presented it as a sample of some things to look for. One was as a cash summary of an activity for a particular account with SOV for the month, and and going through that myself, I was able to see like $1,700 in bank charges. I mean, it's a small amount, but still, there's some things that I want to look into.
$1,700 in bank charges?
Yes, I know. It's
That's
small.
a lot of ATM trips, man.
Right. And then $1.6 million of transfers. Now, transfers, theoretically, again, I would like to know personally, like, what's going on behind the transfers. And then I was also able to see that it was a $3,000 Pacific Life 3Ts Foundation grant that the school had received. I don't know if you were aware of that.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, but that's something that should go on the second tool that I put together for the board, which is really an open task list for you guys. You guys really should have a list of items that you are aware of and that you have to see through fruition until it's completely done, for his life. So, for instance, if the educative effectiveness grant had come in, you will see the cash hit the deposit, and then now that goes to a list to make sure that you guys can hold the school accountable to make sure that that's the restriction behind that grant are met. So that's kind of how those two
And
fit
just
together.
for the board information, I became aware of that, and of course, what we're doing, we are addressing it. Even before Chris actually mentioned that, we are addressing it in a way that we are providing with advance notice to our board members whenever they need to actually approve some documents with enough time to actually do the turnaround. Unfortunately, we were not providing enough turnaround time, and this was happening where we actually had additional fees. But now we are going to be working on making sure that there's enough time not only for to get it approved, but also to send payments as well. And yes, we're taking care of that. And well, Chris, let me tell you, I wish we had you before. Unfortunately, we have been with Charter Impact for a year, and this is information that we needed a year ago.
Right.
But
Yeah.
thank you.
So
Thank
we've
you
been
for-
playing Andy Stern, and this guy's been sitting on the bench? Who's coaching this team over here? I like you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. You and I are friends for life now.
No, because it's important, man. We need people who aren't shy about shining a light on something, right?
Mhm.
So we can fix what we see. But the problem is we see so much,
Yeah.
you start to get blurry, right?
Yeah.
So you really need somebody to put something into focus and put it so that we can pour our collective attention onto that. And look, was not me, but these guys are smart and they fix stuff. But they can only fix what they see. We can only fix what we can focus on.
Right.
So I really appreciate you spending this time with us. Thanks.
Right, yeah, I actually presented at the CCSA's conference this year, and my conference lecture was actually on board oversight. And one of the things that I highlighted to boards is that you can't understand everything, because you have to be experts at staff retention and student discipline and academic performance and legal compliance and reporting compliance and financials and facilities and special education. You can't be experts at all those different things, so you have to count on people like me that are going to come and give you the information you need to make the right decisions. And so that's really sort of how I look at this.
Love it.
All right, so I'm sorry. Little sidebar there. All right.
I wanted to go to that, but Joseph wouldn't let me go, just so you know.
All right.
Duly noted.
All right, so now we'll move over to Saddleback. That's one down. We'll move over to Saddleback now. And I'll be a little quicker here. Saddleback, in terms of their enrollment attendance.
Chris, can we actually speed it up a little?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's right.
You don't want to be late for a
I
9
get-
o'clock meeting?
I get paid by the hour. All right, we budgeted 593. We ended up the year with 593. Fantastic job there. 97.5% attendance rate budgeted. Actually ended up at 98.9. Great job, fantastic job. Keep it up. Whatever programs you guys are using, continue to do it. Revenues. For the year, we anticipated 5.6 million. Ended up with $5.4 million. Again, another great job. As Oswaldo stated, the federal nutrition and state nutrition revenues were pretty much nothing. That's another area that we talked about, and Oswaldo will be auditing, if I can use that word. He will be auditing that, which means it's not a good thing, but he will be looking at that to take care of that. But the school's doing a fantastic job here in terms of the revenues as well. Expenses. We budgeted the year for a little bit over 5 million, ended up with 5.1 million. I mean, it's a great budget. I'm not sure exactly who did this budget. Fantastic job here. And real quick, I'm sorry, Oswaldo's going to kill me here. In terms of when you're doing a budget, what you hope to do is all the revenue stuff is pretty standard. Anybody can do that. Anybody can do that stuff. Even Mr. Jackson can do that. It's a pretty standard calculation. The expenses is where it gets a little tricky. You have to understand who you're going to hire, at what level, what sort of benefits you're going to get, what sort of salaries. You got to understand all of your leases and utilities and insurance and all of the other things that go along with that. So what you want to do is be able to have all the detail behind those numbers to make sure that you're managing your budget on a very detailed level on a month-to-month basis. So the budget here was done very well. So got to give kudos to whoever did this. The surplus. So we are ending with a surplus, which means we have more revenue than expenses at about $548,000 for this year. If you add it to previous year's results of 1.2 million, that gets us close to $1.8 million in total value. So again, just a great job there. Oh, and to go back to your earlier question, Mr. Jackson, the school has an average expenses of about $596,000 for Orange County. So your cash is like $970,000, and I say that's your net cash. And what I usually do is I take the cash and subtract your liabilities, pay off all your debt, and then that leaves you with a real true cash balance. So the school has about 1.6 months of expenses there. So you're almost there. And then for Saddleback, it averages about $426,000 in expenses. True cash of about $819,000, so that puts you at about 1.92 of monthly expenses. So again, you're almost there where you need to be, I think. So, but still, overall, fantastic job. That does deserve an applaud, by the way.
Right, we're all about that.
I didn't tell them to applaud, Oswaldo. I did not tell them to do that. So sorry it took some more time there.
It is my job not to applaud.
All right. Cash balance, this school is expected to end the year at about $1.5 million, so we'll be very healthy. And Chino Valley, we all know Chino Valley is closed. Not going to go too much into Chino Valley. I don't think there's anything new here that hasn't already been said other than the STRS penalties are being, the past due payments are being addressed, and the penalties, which is really free money going out the door, are also being addressed as well. So I'll leave that there. Okay, that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next up is compensation study for Chancellor, presented by Kathleen Doherty.
As we did for our executive director, we are required to do a compensation study for any of the top executives. And this is the Chancellor compensation study. I use some of the similar districts and sites that are local to our area. And I did the compensation based on K-8s as much as I could, but that's not a common configuration, as you can tell. So I included 7/8s in that compensation, as well as K-6s, and the number of days. So what you see is the number of days they work and their grade level, the base salary, and then the range, which goes from year 1 to year 6, because typically administration doesn't have a lot of step growth. So the low is 102.04, the high is 121.113, and that is for year 1. So this is just year 1, and the average or the middle point is 111.576. So you're going to be approving a resolution in your action items that says that you have looked at this study. So when it comes time to offer a contract, you will have the comps that you need to be able to do that.
Okay, that moves us into F, items scheduled for consent. Item 1, minutes from regular board meeting 5/1/18 and 5/8/18. Warrant reports for April 2018. Personnel report, addition of Oswaldo Diaz as checking account signer, and addition of Kathleen Doherty as employment contract signer. Anything anyone wishes to discuss, or do I have a motion?
Who are the other signatories besides Oswaldo? Just. Okay, so we'll have the 3. We're not considering removing anyone, it's just adding. Okay.
Okay. I guess my question is, what would the employment contract signing authority be for? Would that just be for teachers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. The intent is to have all teachers and as much as possible any other employee have their contract prior to July 1, but for teachers in particular, to have them before the last day of school.
That would be ideal. And the goal.
Well, and we, just for your information, we met with every teacher yesterday, with the exception of one who's on maternity leave, and she's going to come in and meet with me on Tuesday, so that we could go over the components of the contract. And now that we have that data, we will be able to create a contract for everybody.
Excellent. So do I have a motion to approve items scheduled for consent?
I'll move to approve.
Wait a minute,
Oh,
but
I'm sorry.
after you do that, so you make a motion, let me make sure I got this right. So you make a motion, I second it, then we can talk about it.
Yes.
Right? Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
I have a question.
Wait, he wanted his.
Oh, question? Sorry.
Yeah, no, so when we go through this check register, and you see these, $1,000 reimbursements, is that, I'm guessing that's for school supplies or whatever, but that's just, there's a protocol for that, for approving that, right? Okay. And then the next question is, and I don't know if I'm supposed to keep this secret or not, but what are all these confidential things? Give me an example of what is that? Okay,
You approved them in
Okay.
closed session, so we
Okay.
can't have the names.
that's fair. Yeah, that's good. But that's all it is? Okay. Okay. Just yeah. Because if I see it, I'm going to talk about it. All right.
Just as a protocol reminder, if there's an item that you want to talk about, you need to pull it out of the consent and talk about it, and then approve the rest of the items in consent.
Mr. Jackson, would you like to pull this item from the consent so that you can discuss
Well, I
it
just
further?
talked about it. I'm done now.
I didn't know if you had any other
I just
bullets you
meant for
wanted to fire
future.
there.
Okay.
All right.
No, I'm good.
Does anybody have any items that they would like to pull from consent?
No.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to approve the items scheduled for consent. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed, this motion passes. Takes us into G, items for discussion and/or action. Number 1, adoption of revised fiscal recovery plan. The board will be asked to consider approval of the revisions to fiscal recovery plan that was submitted as part of the notice of violation response to Capistrano Unified School District, which will outline the actions taken to ensure that OPA schools remain in sound fiscal health, presented by Kathleen Doherty.
So just a couple of changes that came this time based on input from SOC, from CAPO. They wanted to see the actual numbers that were going to be affected by the reductions of positions. So this new fiscal recovery includes those reductions, the specific numbers, and those numbers aren't the base salaries. I want everybody to know that that is the total compensation, which includes statutory benefits and health benefits as well. We did an addition to the fiscal policies and internal controls addition by adding the FICMAT, the approval of the FICMAT policy and our revised fiscal policies. So that is an addition. And we added at number 10 to address the declining enrollment at SOC and be more specific about the ADA revenue calculated by letting them know that we were going to do a request for a revision of the MOU to increase the number of students in the seat-based program by 40 and maintain an independent study and allow a priority to be established for admission to the seat-based program. And that would increase the ADA by $388,000. And I'm using the term ADA here rather than enrollment because I calculated a conservative 97% versus 98.
Just a quick observation, you have a typo in the last sentence on number 11. That's just, that better fits the needs.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I will change that one. Thank you. But those are the changes to the original one.
All right, the item is to approve, let's recommend the Board of Directors approve adoption of fiscal recovery plan. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Are there any comments or questions other than the typo? None for me. Can I ask what the status of selling the furniture is?
$4,900 a month.
No, that's our burn rate. Yep.
Yes, I was provided the instruction from the interim executive director to actually find a nonprofit organization or charter school that is willing and able to buy the furniture. So far, we were approached by a couple of charter schools, but they were under the impression that what we wanted to do was actually just donate the furniture. And at that moment, when I told them, no, what we really want to do is sell the furniture, they didn't come back. And I was mentioning, well, we can parcel out the furniture, what would you like to buy? And but I didn't get any reply.
Yeah, because they're going to come back in 5 months after you spent another $30,000 on it and see if you rethink it.
Yeah, so far we have spent upwards of, it's probably 11 months since we actually we had the furniture 11 months in storage at a burn rate of roughly $5,000.
So is the cost of rent per month times every month that we keep it there not worth it from what we could get for the furniture?
We originally had a verbal deal going with Allegiance Charter to buy the furniture at a reduced cost if they would take it out of storage and put it into the Chino campus, which is the campus that they have. But there is a requirement by authorizers that they are supposed to fund or put furniture in that is equal or comparative to all of their other schools. So they were notified of that. We were encouraged by both of our authorizers to check in with CVUSD and see if we could offer them a significantly discounted rate because they are going to be required to buy new furniture And that's one of the things that Osvaldo is going to be looking into. But push comes to shove, if we haven't made any advancement in the next 2 to 3 weeks, then we are going to be donating it to get out from under the payment.
Thank you.
Hey, Chris, can you come up here, buddy, so our PJ group can, because you know how unfun it would be to be home in your PJs and not hear what you said.
Yeah, I thought about that, actually. The couple of schools that Oswald was speaking about are schools that I brought to the table. I think the original email said donate, so I was thrown off by that. But the schools are still willing to purchase the furniture, of course, at a really good deal. And I actually have 2 other schools, too. So I have a total of 4 schools that would be interested in really working out a deal for pieces of furniture here and there.
And that's what Osvaldo's going to be dealing with.
All right, great.
With the goal of by the time my contract is done, so will the furniture be.
That sounded biblical.
So, quick question on the rental. Usually you have to give 30-day notice, so it would make sense to give the 30-day notice on that rental space so that then we're good to go
Right.
at the end of June.
Yep.
Then we're going to be motivated.
Yeah, yes.
Definitely so. Mr. Diaz, did you have an opportunity to look at this? Is there anything that you would want to add?
I actually had the opportunity to review the document and discuss it as well with the interim executive director. I believe that this will definitely provide additional funds and ease up our financial, not financial issues per se, but definitely offset the salary increase as well.
Okay, any further discussion? So the recommendation for the Board of Directors is that we approve adoption of a fiscal recovery plan. All those in motion to approve? We already are in a motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? This motion passes unanimously. Item 2, approve updated fiscal policy and procedures manual and FICMAT charter school best practices fiscal procedures. 2A, the board will consider approval of an updated fiscal policy and procedures manual which contains the fiscal operating policies, procedures, and protocols. 2B, the board will consider adopting the FICMAT charter school best practices fiscal procedure with the following language in place to supplement the above policies and procedures and ensure safeguards are in place. Quote, the governing board of the charter school adopts on an ongoing basis the most recent fiscal crisis and management assistance team, FICMAT, California Charter School Accounting and Best Practices Manual to supplement the charter school's accounting policies and procedures. In the event of any conflict between the most recent FICMAT Charter School Accounting and Best Practices Manual and the charter school's accounting policies and procedures, the charter school's policies and procedures will prevail. Presented by Kathleen Doherty.
So I'm going to let Osvaldo talk about the fiscal policies and procedures manual. It was recommended by legal counsel and also by the CAPO representatives that we supplement our own policy and procedural manual with the FICMAT one, and that they were going to take that as an indication that we had really taken seriously their request to put internal controls in place and we're following proper protocols.
Yes, I had the opportunity to attend training from FICMAT relaying this specific policy and procedure manual. It's actually good internal controls. I don't see any conflicts that I would be aware, or I should say that they're an issue for the organization. On the contrary, what this document is doing is enhancing our controls. And as I mentioned before, part of the process that I'm actually conducting during the past week and a half, and I will continue for the next weeks, it's actually identify the control issues that we have. But this document is very, very helpful. Now, I just, as a side note, I would like to mention that as I was meeting with the FICMAT representative that actually co-wrote this document, I told him, you know, some of these items actually came from the charter schools that I actually work with, and she just left. I could definitely recognize some of the documents that I have worked with, and not necessarily that they took verbatim my documents, but they were actually taken into consideration when they were drafting these documents, and I was very pleased about that.
The one piece that I would like to point out is that the current policy manual has been updated to be much more restrictive than it has been in the past, with a lot more checks and balances, and has to pass through many hands before money is spent. And the amount of flexibility that the executive director or any of the executive director designees can spend without approval has been greatly reduced.
So we have two items. Do we do them together, or do we,
You can approve the entire item as one, or you can take them separately. It's up to you.
why don't we put them together? So we have item 3G2A, which is recommend the Board of Directors approve an updated fiscal policy and procedures manual, and item 3G2B, recommend the Board of Directors approve adoption of FCMAT Charter School best practices fiscal procedures with a statement from above. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, do I have any conversation on this piece? I do have a question. In the event of a conflict between the charter school accounting and FCMAT's system, it says our system will govern over FCMAT.
That is correct. And let's remember that this document is just a base, so to speak, and our policy and procedures are strictly designed to our operation. So this is more general. Our policy and procedure are more specific, and that is why they will prevail, just because they're specifically designed to for a specific control in mind.
Okay. And how often do they update the FCMAT policies?
Well, one of the co-authors was mentioning that they are planning to do version number 2, probably in, I would say, a year from now.
And then I presume that you would read it and let us know if we need to update anything?
Of course.
All right.
Mhm.
Any other comments? All right. The motion on the floor is that we recommend the Board of Directors approve the updated fiscal policy and procedures manual, and recommend the Board of Directors approve adoption of FCMAT Charter School best practices fiscal procedures with a statement from above. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. This motion passes unanimously. Takes us to item 3, approve the YM&C legal services invoice. The board is required to approve any expenditure that exceeds $25,000. The invoice from YM&C for legal services performed in April 2018 in the amount of $40,480.41 is brought to the board for consideration. Item 3G3, recommend the Board of Directors approve YM&C legal services invoice.
I move to approve.
I second.
Ms. Doherty, looks like you wanted to say something.
I did. I just wanted to make a comment. Please be aware that all of the expenses on this invoice have been itemized. It's just that they are all confidential, so they can't be included here.
I assumed as much. Thank you, Tom.
And Osvaldo's going to be sure we get that discount rate.
I hope, but unfortunately, legal counsel is very strict on that.
Lawyers. Okay.
In the details, it says we can get a discount, but you have to call them and ask for it. No, it says it. You what?
Then you have to keep your.
Well, we got the time, don't we? Call them and ask them nice.
I'll give them a call.
Okay. So the motion is that we recommend the Board of Directors approve the YM&C legal services invoice. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? This motion passes unanimously. We now jump to item 6, review of back office provider proposals for fiscal year 2018-2019. To ensure the organization is compliant with its financial controls and procedures, the OPA Board of Directors intends to hire a high-quality charter school back office services provider experienced in providing financial support for multi-school charter schools. There are 4 acceptable proposals for back office service provider. It is recommended that the board will hear from the prospective providers, review and make a decision to move forward with one company with an effective date of 7/1/18, presented by Kathleen Doherty and Oswaldo Diaz.
So I just want to let you know that we actually have 3 of the 4 proposals. We have presenters here to present their proposals, and Ed Tech has withdrawn.
And that was because they did not have capacity to actually service us as clients. And what they did mention was like, we are willing to actually take your engagement, but it's going to be 2 or 3 months in the future. And I said, well, we actually need to start July 1st. So they are not submitting.
Okay. So we can take them in the order that's on the agenda if you'd like. Should be, it's not on that one, it's on the online one that I did.
Okay.
So what order? Well, we have Charter Impact.
There we go.
Ready to go. Well, on the wall. So Chris, would you like to come up? Okay, and I have limited them to 10 minutes each. Well, I've limited Chris to 10 minutes.
That's what I figured. Okay, I'm probably not going to hope to not even take up that much time. So you've already heard sort of my philosophy on really what the back office support really should be doing for the schools. And you heard my presentation of the financials. So you sort of got an example of what we bring to the table as far as Charter Impact is concerned, and specifically my style. And again, that's to make sure that all the levels of accountability are in place. And so I'm hoping the board will certainly take that into consideration in selecting, mainly because this is really a great school. I've done a lot of research on the school. I've had a chance to spend the day around some of the staff and kids, and I think it's an excellent school, and it would be unfortunate that to have constant pressure be put upon the school. So anyway, I just want to put that out there. So now, Charter Impact. So Charter Impact's been around for a little over 10 years, and we have about 50 clients, including the largest client in California, which is Inspire Charter School, which is one of my specific accounts as well. And what we do for schools is we offer very personalized service, and you'll hear others talk about this too as well. But what I mean by that is I think it's something that's different. What that means for me is I look at this and I take any client that I work with on as if it's my own, right? Because I'm sort of putting my name behind the things that I talk about and the things that I present. So it really has to be able to represent who I am as a person. And just the way I am personally, there has to be a wow factor to it. There has to be, at the end of the day, after you hear me speak and you hear me talk, you have to feel like you've gotten your money's worth. So that's just how I operate. And, and so again, I take the work that I do very personally. And that's what I'll continue to do. So if that means getting involved at whatever level of work that's necessary, then that's what I do. I don't stick to a scope of work. There's no limitations behind my time and my effort for this school. Taking into consideration that people are very vested in this school, the teachers, the staff, the parents, students. The board works for free. And so there's a lot of you're taking up my 10 minutes.
Please say you're kidding, right?
And so, again, you have to take that all into consideration. So my level of investment of my time and effort shouldn't be any different. And so I have to make sure that I'm giving you all the information that's necessary to fully understand the financial health of this school and to be a part of its success. And so that's what we've done for all of our clients, really. And in the package, you'll see some testimonials of some accomplishment with some of the other schools and how we've saved money. And one of the schools we grew from 220 kids to over 22,000 kids now this year in 4 years. So, and that's just the level of work that we do. And and we have very, very experienced staff. I mean, I've been only in the industry for 2 years, but I work hard, I study hard, and it's important for me to do that because I'm in positions like this where I have to present. And so when I present, I have to, again, represent the company and I have to represent the school. And so it's important for me to be able to give you the information that you need to answer all the questions that you have that are important to you. And so I feel very comfortable when I come before a board or come before you, your parents and staff, that I'm able to do and give you all the information that is necessary. But outside of that, we do have staff. Our owner's been in this industry for over 10 years, very well known, very well respected. We have someone who's leading our data and tech team that's also been in this industry for well over 10 years, and someone on our accounts payable and payroll side as well, again, with well over 10 years of experience working with charters. So it's good for me to have that support behind me because now I can tap into that to make sure, again, that I'm answering questions before they're even answered. And so it's common for me to always over-prepare for these meetings so that we're never left in a situation where we're hanging for another month until the next board meeting to have a question answered. So I'm asking the board to certainly consider that. I know that Charter Impact has been with this school for quite some time, but I haven't. And so I'm hoping that that'll carry some weight as well. Thank you guys very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is he able to answer questions? Can we ask some questions?
Sure. 30 seconds.
30 seconds? So Charter Impact, you're awesome. I like you a lot.
Thank you. Really appreciate
And I
it.
appreciate you coming tonight.
No, absolutely.
The rub is that you just got here.
Mhm.
And what I love is I love common sense, reasonable, rational explanations for things, not a bunch of stuff that sounds like we're speaking dolphin, right?
Right.
We don't really understand that.
Right.
And so how are you going to be able to take advantage of this charter, our experience with Charter Impact, right? So we've been with them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to be able to leverage that? Because you're a new guy, right? You just got here. That's the A question. The B question is you mentioned that you had another school that was your customer, or you work with them, and they're a big school.
Right.
Right? So what percentage of our time are we going to get of you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How much of that's going to be split? So
Right.
those are my two questions.
Yep, okay. So for the first question, it gives me a huge advantage to have the resources available to ask certain questions that I need answered. One question in particular is that, well, actually two things. Oswaldo and I were going through the budget earlier today, and we saw that the school didn't have any title funding. And so now the natural question for me is why? I know that some schools don't like to have title funding. Title funding, again, for everyone who doesn't understand, is that it's federal funding that you receive from the federal government as part of the ESSA program, Every Student Succeed Act, to help you in your, and I know Kathleen spoke about this in a meeting or two ago, to help really with your efforts with your teaching students, just to generalize it. And so some schools don't like to really apply for that funding because there are some strict reporting requirements behind it. I don't know if that's the case with this school. So I like to be able to tap into those resources that have already been with this school and to sort of figure out and find out why. Why aren't we doing the title funding? The second thing was we also noticed that your food expenses are a lot higher than your food revenue that you take in. Now, they should really even out because if you have students that actually fill out the application and they're eligible for subsidized meals, then you'll receive the revenue for those and they'll offset the cost of that. If you have students that are paying for meals, then again, you have an offset to your meal costs. But your meal costs, from what we saw, were twice as much as the revenue you're bringing in. That's an issue that we need to look at. So being, again, able to tap into those resources that other back office just won't. They'll come in completely blind, and it'll be starting over, they'll be starting over, and it will take them months to be able to even get to a point where they're even comfortable. So I can get comfortable immediately. Now, in terms of my time, I give as much time as necessary, plus to make sure that, again, that I'm always answering questions for you before you ask them. Like when you asked me that question about, well, what are our average expenses? I knew the answer because I knew that was a potential question. I used to be in the music industry, and I used to have a CFO who played the gotcha game. So he would always try to ask questions to get you and see if you were prepared or not. And so I've always utilized that experience to always prepare for situations like this.
I think Josh used to work in that same company. He
Oh,
does
really?
that. Right, thanks, Chris.
You're very welcome. Any other questions?
Well, let me tell you, Chris, that I don't play the gotcha game. As you notice, I actually, we had the conversation. You knew exactly where I was coming from with all of these questions. So it's definitely, like I said, I wish we had you from the beginning so we could actually get a better sense. Unfortunately, right now, you're coming at the back end, and there's many issues that we need to address. And just for the board information, the food item that Chris was mentioning is part of my risk assessment that I'm conducting as well. So it's many issues, but that's one of them. And definitely, Chris seems to be very knowledgeable just based on the conversations that we had this morning and afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm just going to put it out there that my son got an emergency lunch like 2 days ago. I made him lunch myself, and he didn't bring it. He didn't bring it. Hey, what about, I have a question. What are we paying now? What do we pay Charter Impact now, and what's this? I mean, I see what the new proposals for.
Yeah, I think it went from 1.75% down to 1.25% of revenue.
Okay. Why is that?
I think it's just a goodwill gesture, for one, because there were some issues that Oswald and Mr. Doherty talked about. And I think it's just to show that we are really dedicated to keeping the school and to resolving a lot of the issues that are there. You know, again, I think it's just mostly internal controls, and I think I'll be able to help add some value to some of that as well.
But
I mean, Oswaldo's great.
The other fees are the same, though?
Yes, but they're minimal.
Do we use them to do our payroll now?
Yes.
They do our payroll? Yeah. I'm really done.
Okay, thank you.
All right, great.
Looks like we have up next is CSMC.
Board members, board chair meeting. Executive Director, interim. My name is Nick Driver, and I represent CSMC. Really happy to be with you here tonight. I have to start off by saying that we were here, not me personally, in a previous life that wasn't quite as happy. And so I just want to say how happy I am to see new board members. The previous iteration or previous engagement we had with your set of schools was we had to end in 2012. So we're really happy to see new leadership coming in, both Mr. Diaz and Dr. Arnold, and also Dr. Doherty. And you new board members probably don't have a memory of 2012 when your founding administration was doing things that we didn't feel were completely on the up and up, and so we had to part ways. One of the things that we do as a back office provider, and we've been doing this for 18 years now, since I've been doing this for 14 years, we've been doing it for 18 years, has been to speak hard truths. That's one of the things that we hope will be very seldom done because of the new administration, very professional administration, but we don't shy away from saying hard truths when they need to be said. If you could go on, I'll just say just briefly our history. As I said, we've been around for 17 years. We're the oldest, and been doing traditional back office for 17 years, and then over the years have been doing a lot more. And so one of the big, if you could go to the next slide, one of the big difference makers for us is the breadth of our services. I personally am not a CPA. We have many CPAs. We have many payroll experts. We have many data experts on our staff. I myself am expert at governance training and strategic planning and starting new charter schools. I've helped start, over the 14 years I've been in the industry, a couple of hundred, both between when I was at CCSA for 8 years and also the last 7 years at CSMC. Those are my experiences and expertise levels. So I'm going to try my best, if you have questions that are more accounting focused or payroll focused, to answer those, but also know that we have a team of close to 100 folks back in our home offices in Los Angeles and in Temecula right next door to here that are able to answer those questions more deeply than I am. If you could go to the next slide. So one of the big differences that I think that I've already spoken to this a little bit about earlier on an earlier slide is that we don't have only payroll specialists, accounting specialists, and data specialists, but we have founders. I serve as board chair for 6 charter schools. Of course, that means CSMC cannot do the back office services for those 6, but I'm very proud to be the board chair and have been for 6 years. We have other school founders who have decided that they want to go on from founding schools to do this work. And so we bring a different lens in addition to our deep accounting and payroll and back office, traditional back office support. We also know some of the pain points that you have as school leaders, as board members, and as staff and teachers of your schools. So that's one of the differences. If you could go on to the next slide. The other big difference that I want to point out is something that came up earlier. So with CharterVision, which is a system and a portal that we've invested in for the last 7 years, we have poured millions of dollars into this portal to make it the ultimate in transparency for you. And when I say you, it's primarily used by staff, especially the executive director and the chief business officer, but it's also open to all board members. We highly recommend that all board members have access to it. And it enables you as board members to see every single transaction, every check register detail that you want to see, and source it all the way down to all of the invoices that we put in on your behalf into our system. So if you're looking for transparency, we feel like we have the ultimate in transparency with our CharterVision system. It is a key differentiator for us. If you could go to the next slide. Just a couple of details about CharterVision. It gives you a compliance calendar. We are doing on your behalf all of the compliance items on the financial side, but we also want to take, want to put up videos in case that you want to see what we are doing for you. And there's real-time board meeting reports that come up. There's 25 different reports, including per pupil expense comparison reports, all of the data that you want to see at a board meeting, but also if you want to see it in between board meetings, it's there with just a simple login and a password.
And is that data, is that comparative data, like about what other schools?
Exactly.
Oh,
We
wow.
have comparative data with other schools. We have comparative assessment data on the education side with all the schools in the state, with all the schools in your district and other charter schools in the district. On the financial side, we use averages. We don't display other schools' financials to you. We do it on an average basis with all of the approximately 200 schools that we serve in the state, so that you can see on each line item, whether it's salaries or supplies or insurance, that you're within the average, or if you're above the average, how many dollars above the average you are, so that you can make informed decisions or ask your staff to do that. I will say that just while we're on this, on a side note, I mentioned our painful discussion that we had with your founding administration 6 years ago. Another thing that differentiates us is that we work with the folks from FCMAT. You just approved FCMAT policies. We presented at the CCSA conference with FCMAT on best practices because we take the financial side very seriously. We've actually called FCMAT in on one of our clients. We've only done it once in our 17 years and 500 plus schools of this. It's not something we never thought we would do this, but we had to do it. So we're never going to be in a position like that if we partner together, because we know that you have very highly recommended professional staff that have been doing this work in other schools. But I just wanted to let you know the seriousness with which we take this work. It's not done lightly, but it is done because the funds are not here for personal benefit or for somebody's cousin's benefit. They're here for the kids, and we take that remit as stewards of the public funds very seriously. If you could go on to the next, we have a couple of other pieces that I want to mention before I close that set us apart. I mentioned our student achievement module. This is a new tool that allows you to tell a great story for your renewal, but also in your community about how great you're doing at Oxford Preparatory Academies. And it's something that uses state data, but also uses your own data. This is something that's clearly on the education side or the assessment side, not so much what other back office companies are doing, but we take our remit as wraparound service providers very seriously. We don't only provide excellent back office support, we provide these other levels of support as well. So I think I'm going to stop there. I've got a few more slides, but in the interest of time, I know we're supposed to end at 10 minutes. I will just say that, you know, the final piece that we take very seriously is keeping dollars in the classroom. We've provided you with a quotation for services that we feel is keeping maximizing the dollars that you put in the classroom. And so we've structured that as a one-year proposal, but we're happy to extend that at the same flat rate for 2 years if that's the pleasure of you, board members, and the recommendation of the staff. And with that, I will stop and say thank you and ask for any questions.
I actually have a couple questions, if I may. Well, first of all, is your organization a nonprofit or a for-profit?
No, we're organized as a for-profit corporation.
Perfect. Also, the contract of $197,000, does that contract include both the reporting, payroll, attendance, CalPATs?
Yeah, if it's not clear in the proposal, I appreciate the question. All of those services are included. CalPADs, attendance reporting, payroll, all back office services, including accounting, budgeting, all of those are, as well as our wraparound services. So those should all be listed in our proposal, but if it wasn't clear, I apologize. They are all included in that one flat rate.
The way the proposal's written, it looks like you weren't pitching that stuff.
Yeah, they're all zeros.
They're all
So
zeros.
they are listed there, but it's zero.
That means it doesn't cost you anything.
Got it, yeah.
It's not meant to say you don't get them. It's meant to say they don't cost anything.
Okay. And,
Thank you for the question, the clarifying
and
question.
finally, based on your portal, can you customize your portal to actually show consolidated financials? Let's say
Yes.
we have 2 schools that it shows 2 schools or 3 schools, I should say, including Chino that's also still ongoing. So
Yes.
to actually show consolidated, and if it has flexibility to actually change the reports.
Yes, yes to both of those questions. So for instance, in the case of OPA, we would have you listed as 4 different entities so that you as administration and board could see consolidated, which is one entity, and then the 3 schools, including the one Chino school, which is closed because it's still, you know, needs to be closed out. And those reports can be rolled up and also differentiated by restrictor code, by month of the year. You can produce all kinds of reports at the click of a mouse or a couple clicks of a mouse to do either you know, by school or consolidated, and you could do it by object code, restrictor code, or program code. So it's very flexible and allows you to, you know, zero in on, for instance, 1 month of 1100 series teacher salaries, if you wanted to, at one school, and then what the roll-up is, and compare the 2 schools that are active. All of those things are possible with Charter Vision, yes.
I know that Charter Vision offers other activities for the executive director or anybody else who wants to take a look, including attendance and LCAP and Single School Plan and a few others. Are those add-ons or are those included in the
Those are
budget?
included, and I appreciate the question. The only thing that I will say especially for the achievement module, which you want to have your teachers look at because it's looking at student performance, and that's obviously not just a top administrative task. That's something you want your teachers to look at. We would give the teachers different access. That is to say, teachers would not have access to the entire financials. That would be the purview of the executive director, the CBO, and the board. But you want your teachers to be able to see the achievement module to look at that. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, more or less. Just, I was curious if there was an add-on cost.
there's no add-on cost for the LCAP module or the CASP module that I just presented, the achievement module. Those are pieces that we add on recently for all schools, and we want to make it available to Oxford Preparatory Academy. Thank you.
Thank you.
My turn?
Yes.
So thank you very much for having those tough conversations and doing the tough work back in 2012. Appreciate that. And we'll be passing your contact info to our legal team. You might be a witness to some of that stuff. But I wondered about who are we going to work with from your firm? Is it going to be you?
Yeah, on a later slide that I didn't get to, I would point out that we have Orange County-based staff. We have CPAs who are based right here who would serve the school. What we call the school business manager, works very closely with Mr. Diaz and Dr. Arnold, but mostly Mr. Diaz, to do the financial reports that Mr. Williams did earlier tonight, comes out to the school in between and works very closely. We also have 6 other staff people who are based back either in our Los Angeles or our Temecula office that are doing the day-to-day work either of student data, whether it's CalPADS reporting, attendance reporting, or the day-to-day of AP, invoices, and budgeting and forecasting. So
not you.
None of those people are me. As I mentioned earlier, my expertise is in school development and governance training. I would be happy to come out and I've done this for many boards and do governance training. I agree with Mr. Williams. It's a very important duty that you guys have, and I take my role as board member very seriously. I know you guys do as well. We can never get enough training. That's the role that I would love to play with your school. I'm not the right person to do the budgeting for you. I'll just say that right now because that's not my role at CSMC. You wouldn't want that.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is XED.
And we have Brian Badia here.
Adjustment, I'm the shorter of the 3. Let's come down. So I have to go back also to those ASB students because they're going to put me to shame. This is what it looks like when you send a CPA to do presentation speaking like this. I don't have my numbers and spreadsheets to hide behind. So good evening. My name is Brian Badillo.
Be sure you talk in the microphone.
My name is Brian Badillo. I am a VP of School Finance with XED. And it's my pleasure to present our business services proposal to the Board of OPA. Just so you know a little bit about me, I have been with XED for a little over 4 years now. Previously, I was actually an auditor with Christie White Associates, who I believe is OPA's current auditor. So I have worked on both sides of the financial statements. I went from the auditor to the auditee. I went from auditing federal and state compliance to preparing federal and state compliance. So I've seen both sides of the coin. So I think that's just another piece that we bring to the table, should we be providing services to OPA. So I hope you've all had a chance to read over the proposal. I'm not going to go into it into detail only because, the root of the proposal is going to be really similar from proposal to proposal, right? So I'll just give you a little bit of background about XED and kind of maybe how we differ and can bring something else to the table. So about XED, we've been in operation since 1998. We serve 104 schools across 60 organizations. I think at the last count, it was roughly 44,000 students. In addition, we've financed 29 school facilities totaling $174 million. We currently have 83 employees in our Los Angeles and San Diego office. I am from the San Diego office. And some of the schools that we actually serve in your local area are Community Roots, Edward B. Cole, El Sol, Journey, Samueli Academy, and a new one that's actually coming on next year, Tomorrow's Leadership Collaborative, or TLC. So we are taking them on next year as a new client. And so that's just a little bit about us. We've been in operation since 1998, so we've been doing this for quite a while. So, you know, what separates us, what makes us different? So what I like to say, and it really doesn't become apparent until we start working together, but I really like this to be a partnership. And so, you know, maybe to answer your question ahead of time is, it is me. You know, again, this isn't my comfort zone to speak like this. It's more in numbers and your financials and how we can serve you and serve the school better. But, you know, it really starts with the team of individuals that we assign to you. They do have experience in charter school finance, and it's not just me, it's, you know, I'm one person that may oversee 5 to 7 schools, but you take us as a whole, we meet collaboratively on a weekly basis, and we just talk about issues, everything that's coming about, you know, what's new right now. And you know, in our last meeting, it was the federal addendum to the LCAP, it was SIPSA, it was the May revise, and what's the June budget going to look like when it's finalized. And so we collaborate on a weekly basis so that we're up to date, so that we can provide you with a better service. So you get that when you contract with XED. So it's that experience that we believe that can help OPA succeed. I actually had a chance to watch, I think it was the May 8th board meeting when Oswaldo was speaking, and I started taking notes, like, you know, that's just the accountant CPA in me. And I started taking notes of everything that he was saying, and I said, shoot, I could have helped here, I could have helped there. I can help here, I can help there. And one of the examples was our online submission tool. I can track an invoice from the time it's submitted all the way to, you know, who and what time and date has it been submitted by the school. Has the school approved it, the person that's supposed to approve it at the school, what time and date have they done that? So we make sure that it goes through all of the internal controls at the school site before it comes to us. And then it goes through another set of internal controls specific to XED, making sure that, one, you know, we have our analysts check, does the invoice match what we're paying? You know, is it a certain amount that requires board approval? If it's not, we kick it right back to you. You know, does this have a contract attached to it? Should it have a contract attached to it? So we make sure that all of those items are in place before we even cut a check for you. We are very, you know, we will push anything back saying, this doesn't seem right, please give us more information so that we can properly do our job. Again, that comes from me as an auditor and just checking everything that comes across my desk. And so, you know, it's those types of things that we think that we can bring to the table. You know, when we really get to know your fiscal policies, I do know the FICMAT fiscal policies that you just approved, so I know those well. And again, we understand that you can get from, you know, the fastest way from point A to B, or from A to C is right through B, but you can take route C, you know, D or any other route. But my job is to make sure that the proper internal controls are in place to mitigate any risk for whatever direction you want to take, right? So again, something that we just bring to the table, and it's not just about being a partner with a school. We feel like it's also being a partner with your authorizer. So it really humbles me when a district tells me, you know, we're doing a really good job, or, you know, we're glad that they have you as a back office provider. So,
Right. I think I missed a couple of things. Just for the interest of time, let's wrap up. But one of, I believe I missed this one. Are you for-profit or non-profit organization? And
we are.
Also, can you talk a little bit about how you partner with your clients?
So we are actually, I think, the only nonprofit organization. So we are mission-driven, just like our schools are. And so, you know, it's kind of what I was saying. It really is that partnership between two nonprofit organizations. You know, we're not striving for a bottom line. We're, you know, and really what my wrap-up was it's our goal to provide a quality service and take the hard work of the financial side out of the equation, so that you as a board and staff can really focus on the importance, which is providing a quality education for your students.
If I'm reading your proposal correctly, you're proposing an annual cost of about $212,000 for both schools and outsourcing payroll to Paychex, right?
The outsource is actually included. So we outsource the, Paychex is the people that run it. We do all the retirement reporting in-house. And so the payroll is run by us. We only use Paychex to cut the checks, but that is no additional cost.
So that's not an additional
No.
cost?
No,
Okay.
no additional
so
cost.
So it's a $212,000? Because
Correct.
when I was doing the math, you were like $50,000 more than your competitors if you were gonna, if Paychex was gonna run it.
No, Paychex is no additional
So
cost.
you're about 12 to 15,000 more than your competitors.
Correct.
What do you attribute that delta to?
You know, we just put in, what we do is we have someone back in our main office that kind of just formulates student population, taking on a new client, things like that, and he has this crazy spreadsheet that spits out a number, and that's just kind of where we arrived. For our CalPAD services, that is set by, we have a CalPAD specialist back in the main office at LA, and she is, you know, just, we invest a lot of time into CalPADs because that's your student data and that's what's really driving everything.
So if your cost for getting CalPADs, because if that's just a statutory kind of calculation for the school finance, $190,000 for both schools the first year, and you're saying that bakes in some startup costs and things like that, what kind of decrease could we expect in the second year of that 190?
It would really depend on how the first year goes. I think that's very much dependable on, you know, the ease of the transition. I think working with Oswaldo would definitely lend, you know, as we just start the ball rolling and we see how much, you know, if it's not really this huge, we have to spend a whole bunch of time on just the startup of OPA, I definitely would consider a decrease at that point.
I just want to add this more of a clarification point to the board. It's the range of back office service providers goes in between 1 to 1.5, 1.7. I think that Charter Impact was charging us 1.7. Was that? So they were at the high side, high end of it at the beginning, and of course this proposal they actually came down, but it's usually it's around 1 to 1.5%.
So what's the 190,000? What's that percentage wise?
So we're talking about the 190 that Charter Impact presented was 1.2, 1.25?
No, the 190 on X.
190 on XA.
I'm sorry, the exit part? It's
Well,
probably.
it's really 212. What's 212?
It's
as a
probably
percentage?
no, I'm sorry, it's probably around 1.5, 1.6.
The 212.
Mhm. And as Brian was mentioning, it's a formula. It's not a straight number per se, but it has several variables. But it usually ranges between 1 to 1.5.
Hey, thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
I appreciate the bravery of the sending the CPA out here. So we would be working with you.
It
right?
would be me. They do send me out again because they want the face that you are going to be dealing with
Yeah.
to be presenting this to you. Again, not my forte, but they want to make sure that you see the face that you will be seeing with the contract.
Got it.
So I look forward to presenting something I'm more comfortable with, which is financials.
Understood.
So I have a question that's actually for all three of you. And my question is, are your costs to attend these monthly board meetings and present included in all your proposals?
For us, it is, yes.
Yeah, I would just say that our cost of payroll is also included in our price, just like the question said.
Okay, thank you.
And you guys are coming every month? And it's not extra?
I think it's more than once a month.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, and I think one of the proposals does have some sort of time limit. We don't have a lead time limit. I put as much time as necessary to get the problem solved. So a lot of times it's a lot, you know, it's a full-time job.
So does that mean you would come here?
Yeah.
Every month? Okay.
Thank you.
And what happened with Charter Impact before, right? So they sent a person in here who was like the golden-throated pitch person. They were amazing. And then we picked Charter Impact, and then they gave us somebody else?
Usually how it is, it's that of course, they have their marketing folks, people that are really good at presenting, and they have the fancy presentations. And I have been through those where they send 6 people. It's really, really nice, and at the end of the day, it's about who the people really working on the engagement, and that's why it's very important. Of course, in this particular case, after seeing Charter Impact, it's somebody that definitely is knowledgeable. In the case of Brian, is also very, very knowledgeable. So, I had the opportunity to both visit Charter Impact's offices and also ECSET's as well, and EdTech that unfortunately didn't submit a bid. Unfortunately, I have seen your presentations, and I actually was in one of them when you were presenting. You actually brought a team of, I think it was 6 or 7 people with Dr. Young, and very nice presentations, by the way. But
But you weren't talking about him, though, earlier. Oh, you weren't talking.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So.
The question was directly about Charter Impact, and I was present for the presentation
Oh,
back in the day.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So,
Okay. I was-
back in the day, December 2015, because they started servicing us in 2016. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. It was Spencer Stiles, their CEO.
There you go.
So Spencer Stiles
Okay.
came out and
All right.
and wowed us with his.
Your proposal's awesome, by the way.
Thank you.
So whoever your proposal prep people are, I don't know if that's you or not, but they did really well.
Thank
There's
you.
one point of clarification in the proposal assumptions. It says OPA will outsource school finance activities, including budgeting, financial, I assume that means that we'll outsource those to XED.
Which part was it? I'm sorry.
OPA will outsource school finance activities, including budgeting, financial reporting, forecasting, accounting, bookkeeping, cash management.
That's referring to outsourcing it to us.
Okay,
Correct.
because it doesn't say that.
Yeah, because we assist with the budgeting, LCAP, everything, anything that has financial, anything financial.
Because
to
then
do
it
with-
goes on to say things that you guys will do, so it's just confusing the way it's written.
That
So
is,
otherwise, it's a nice proposal.
I told you he's that gotcha guy, didn't I tell you that?
that is included.
Told you
That's,
that.
yeah, it's weird because we're referring to outsource it to us, so.
So now what? So now we can talk about all 3 of them?
So basically, staff recommendation is that you approve ECSED. There's various things that staff needs, and of course, is definitely persons that are knowledgeable, and of course, all of them are. But one of the things that, as I was mentioning, that is really, really important is to have a partner that is going to let us know when either we have funds that we're not using, or that we could actually be submitting the request for the grant, and that we're leaving money on the table. Unfortunately, with Charter Impact in the past, we did not have that. In addition to that, we need a portal that it's usable, that it's friendly, and that we can manipulate. In the case of Charter Impact, they don't have a portal. And the one of ECSED, which I actually have.
But they have Chris, though.
Well, yes, but remember, Chris is available certain days, and sometimes, in my case, I need to just feel the numbers. And by that, I mean I need to have reports, have visibility to the activity, and of course, be able to consolidate financial statements. ECSED has one specific report that I like, that, Brian, what is the name of the report that it works like a pivot table? Yes, that one is. So it's actually a report that basically has all of the data available. It has it on the portal, and immediately you can customize it and modify it in a way that you can recreate or create reports on the fly. And I was very impressed when I saw that one. And compared to EdTech, who's also a big competitor of theirs, their portal did not have that flexibility.
So Andy just didn't let us have it? Oh, goodness gracious.
Chris, it was. Yeah. Charter Vision.
Thank you. So, and that's why we're recommending.
So how
that.
does the process work now? Like, so for example, an invoice is received by OPA. How would that process be different with ExEd?
Each one of the backup service providers have their own proven process of how they actually do either batch or submission of approval of invoices. Of course, all of them have been vetted by auditors, so each one of them actually complies with controls. Now, of course, it's what type of controls do we want and processes that we need. And personally, just having the experience of having worked with both Charter Impact and ExEd, that's why I was recommending ExEd.
You prefer them?
Just based on the ease of the process and of course the controls that they have. And like I said, each one of them have their controls that have been vetted by audit firms, and they have what is needed.
Got it. Because just and can I just tell you as a board member, a Rubish board member, I love matrix. I love a matrix. So if you're ever saying, hey, there's 5 different vendors, 5 different vendors or 5 different options or 5 different puppies or whatever, I would love to see puppy A. This is how much they cost. This is the good. This is the bad. This is Mike's. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Understood. And
'Cause,
you will receive it going forward.
Okay. Because right now I'm just in my head doing these calculations, and it's telling me that that's roughly $2,500 a month more expensive for ExEd than the, as Chris described it, the conciliatory pricing of Charter Impact.
No, and I understand your point. And of course, you do need that information to make the best decision possible. I can tell you just by, of course, visiting both organizations and knowing the staff, that ExEd is very robust. As far as the staff that they have, the reporting staff, it's they're very sophisticated in the finance part. And I'm not saying anything bad about the others, but personally, I was very impressed.
Because it's you, and because I like you so much, and you say you've worked with these people before, I would go for this. So,
Is that your motion?
that's my motion.
I second it.
All right, seconding the love and the motion. We have a motion to recommend that we approve a contract with ExEd as back office provider beginning in fiscal year 2018-2019. Do I have a second?
I second.
Oh, you did. I apologize. I forgot there was the love and all that. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? This motion passes unanimously.
I would like to thank both Nick and Chris for presenting, and just to kind of share with the board, I've had an opportunity to work with both of them, and so I am pleased that we actually got 3 superior proposals tonight, and that doesn't always happen, so thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So can we clap for them, because they did a good job?
We now move back to item 4, approve updated school visitor policy. The Board of Directors is committed to safeguarding the schools by ensuring that policies and procedures are updated regularly and shared with Oxford stakeholders and authorizers in a timely manner, ensuring transparency. The updated school visitor policy has been reviewed by both advisory councils and administration. To ensure Oxford Preparatory Academy is compliant with all board policies and protocols required by its authorizers, the board will consider approval of the updated school visitor policy, presented by Kathleen Doherty.
So I'm passing out an updated version other than the one that is in our packet, because we did hear back from legal counsel. As I shared, the original policies came from legal counsel. It went through both advisory councils, and then we had a member of both of the advisory councils take a look at the recommendations on both policies. And once they finished their edits, I sent it back to legal and just got them back a little bit ago. So the comments from legal are in purple, and I left those in for you to see. There were no concerns about any of the edits that the staff made whatsoever. What they wanted to see was a little more language, and so I'd like to look at that language if we could. Let me bring it up. And which policy is first?
Visitor.
The visitor policy. The visitor policy is a new policy. Oh, excuse me, that's one that is a current policy that we are just updating. And the updates are in line with the volunteer policy as well. So you're going to see the same language in both policies. But the visitor policy specifically addresses visitors to the campus and outsiders to the campus, and the protocols that need to be in place to make sure that there are no disruptions to the campus. The main components that our legal counsel wanted to add has to do with, again, with the parts in purple, making sure that we are ensuring that the complaint process we're using is the uniform complaint policy, which we are. And then they also wanted an entire paragraph on law enforcement and the law enforcement officials, and the discussion are put forward in here about who has access and whether it's a government official and what they have to provide before they can get access, and then penalties. And again, links to and references to the penal code and education code and disruptive conduct could mean that we could pursue a restraining order for up to 3 years. So there were none of the edits that were in place originally were taken out. It simply, our legal counsel added those components to it.
There's a page here with a note on loitering. It says to add the clause, but I don't see that clause as having been added.
And what page is that?
If you go to the very last page, it's a comment from Jason Miller on loitering.
We did add it.
I don't see it.
Oh. That was a comment that was added in that said, please add a comment on loitering, and Jason, that was from our other two editors, and he deleted that because it actually did get added up above. You'll see where he added it, where it says following visitation, and this is on the top of the second page. Following visitation, the visitor shall immediately return to the visible means of identification to the registration and depart the school grounds. So he added it, but then he took out the comment about we should add something on it.
It's not really addressing that, but okay.
Well, but that came from them. So it doesn't say loitering in it, but it basically says that once you've finished with your visit, you have to immediately leave.
Yeah, but it doesn't define what the visit is. I mean, following visitation, so you can come visit 8 hours.
There is a part in here that talks about the visit, the observation, and you have to get permission for the visit, and what does the visit look like. So there's some permissions that have to be approved prior to the visit.
Yeah, but I'm just saying as to duration, I don't think it's, I think it's all silent to that.
Should we just add the reasonable visit?
Reasonable's too vague.
Yeah, yeah.
I was throwing a suggestion out there.
I'm sorry, what?
This is where Joseph chimes in with some legal judo.
This may sound really just elementary, but what visits are supposed to be covered by a visitor policy? Is this dropping off your kids? I don't think so, because it's during school hours. Is it if you're a visitor who's volunteering in class?
That's not a you're either a visitor visiting or you're volunteering, and those are two separate things. So a visit is observing, it's an observation more than
So if
anything else,
somebody
or a
just-
visiting.
Okay, so this is not our volunteers.
This
This is
is-
not parents dropping off or picking up or
No.
bringing a lunch that was forgotten. This is.
No, this is a visitor. This could include a guest speaker who is
Okay.
invited to the campus to speak as a visitor, and when their speech is done, then they leave. It covers any number of
It
things.
seems like it's missing the definition of visitor, including duration. I don't know, maybe I'm just missing it, but it's late again.
I don't know. Our legal looked it over, and we started with legal to begin with, so just as an awareness.
Well, I guess a visitor would be any person who's not a student or staff member entering the school when school is in session, but I guess we now carve out volunteers.
Right.
So maybe it's who's not student, staff, or volunteer.
Yep.
And if we approve this today, we could revise it in July, right?
You can revise it anytime you want to. Remember, policies are living documents, and anytime there is a law change or an attitude change, you can certainly revise it.
Because I think Josh has some great questions there. But at the same time, I know that we've kind of talked about this enough times. that-
Mhm.
So are we looking for a motion to approve this as revised?
As revised by, with the additions from legal, yes, and as revised by our councils. And this has, again, this has gone through both councils and admin and legal.
I would want to add the word "or volunteer" to that definition, so we make it clear that that's not who this is applying to. That we're now requiring our volunteers to get 24 hours
Oh,
clearance
right,
before
okay.
appearing.
And where is that?
So it'd be the fourth paragraph, any person who's not a student, comma, staff member, comma, or volunteer.
Okay.
Or do we require our volunteers to register when they enter?
Everybody has to register in the office, yeah. Approve volunteer.
There's a volunteer policy.
We're gonna do the
Yeah,
volunteer
so-
policy next, which is the new one.
I just want to, I don't want to create this administrative headache now that our volunteers now think that they've got to get 24 hours or 3-day notice before they can show up. I mean,
That's why I'm saying
And
that.
this doesn't say that, this is basically making that statement that anybody that comes onto the campus has to register in the office.
That's what this says, or that's what the other ones?
That's what this
But this,
line,
yeah, but it requires, well,
this one doesn't say about 24. This says any person who is not a student or staff member shall register immediately upon entering any school building or
Volunteers
grounds
do
when
that?
school's in session. That's a requirement now.
If volunteers do that, then they do that already, so.
Yeah, that,
It's also very standard, Mr. Chairman, that phrase in any other schools.
but it's.
no, I get that. I'm trying to read the language in the second paragraph and
No,
read it consistent
okay.
with the fourth paragraph. And do we read them in isolation, or do we read them in conjunction with one another?
Mhm.
And there's
I
nothing in that
understand.
fourth paragraph that makes me think that
Yeah.
that doesn't apply to volunteer, or that. Neighbors not a student or staff or volunteer. You know, in a conference with a teacher, so what if the teacher emails a parent and says, I want to talk to you about an incident that happened on campus today? Now we can't do what the teacher requested, because now I gotta get 3 days' notice, because that's a
That,
conference.
no, this is strictly a visitation, and I think you're reading too much into it at this point in time. This is for a visitor on the campus. This isn't a conference that the teacher has set up.
But it says a visit involves a conference with a teacher.
What paragraph is that?
Second paragraph.
Well, you have to arrange those ahead of time, so if the teacher calls you and says, come in, then clearly,
Well, but then it'd be in violation of the at least 3 days' notice requirement.
Should.
I'm just telling you right now, it's times like this that I love my board mates.
No, it doesn't say should, it says shall be scheduled during non-instructional time at least 3 days in advance.
You guys are so smart.
The visits during school hours for the 24 hours should be arranged 24 hours, but if it's and that's to visit the campus to, I think, to observe.
Correct.
But if you're visiting, if you're going for a conference with an executive director, chancellor, or teacher, it shall require 3 days.
Well, you can change shall to should. Or you can say at least a minimum of 1 day in advance.
My recommendation would be that we send this back
Yes.
to be worked on.
Okay. I'm fine with that. Let's do the other one the same way.
I'd like
Can you-
to define what a visitor is.
There you go.
That's fine.
Uh-oh.
This will come back in August
Why not June?
because my committees are not available in June. They're out of school.
Why do we need them to work on it? Can we just go back to the lawyer and say define visitor?
We were just adding things that we're not changing the spirit of the document.
I'm fine. I'm fine with just waiting.
Well, and then we can revise it when they come back, if they have something else.
If we need to take it and let it wait till August, I don't think it's gonna be critical. School will be out before we meet next, and there probably won't be much in the way of visitors. So we can address this in August.
Visitors is defined by what?
Good point.
As TBD.
I'm just kidding.
I know.
The current policy stands right now anyway.
Did we lose Mary?
Yep.
Ms. Campos had to leave.
She took off.
We're about to lose me.
She really left?
She had an emergency.
Okay.
Okay. So are we pulling the volunteer assistance as well?
That's up to you.
Okay, I didn't know, but
I'd like to just, I mean, why don't we just pull both of them for now? And you can
Okay.
make a fair point that nothing's gonna happen now. I'd like more time to review it. I'm too tired to look at it tonight.
Okay?
all right, so the motion was, is somebody going to remove, who made the motion?
I don't think we ever made
You
the
ever made the
motion.
motion?
We just went
Okay,
right
just
into
remember
talking
that.
about it.
All right. Couldn't remember if we made a motion, and if Mary had made it, we had to chase her down to pull the motion before she got the card. All right. 6, 7, approve resolution 2018-007, approving chancellor compensation review. The board will be asked to consider approval of resolution 2018-005 or 007?
007.
There's 5 in the body on it.
Should say 7.
Approving the chancellor compensation review is required by the California Nonprofit Integrity Act, the Internal Revenue Service, CAPS, requirements for tax-exempt 501c3 organizations, presented by Kathleen Doherty.
This is the same resolution that we had to approve for the executive director and for the CBO. This is a resolution that says that you have looked at the study that is for chancellor compensation, which has to be done at a regularly scheduled meeting. And this doesn't identify anybody in particular. It just says that you have done your due diligence.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And it looks like this is good for a year, once we pass it.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
No.
All right, the motion is to approve resolution 2018-007, approving chancellor compensation review. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? This motion passes 4-0. Item 9, introduction of social media policy. The board will review as a first read the new social media policy as recommended by legal counsel and brought to the board to address potential 21st century digital and social media issues Oxford Prep faces. This policy will be reviewed by both advisor councils and administration before it is brought back for final approval. Presented by Kathleen Doherty.
This is just your first read.
So can we,
So it's no action?
If there's no action, it's simply a discussion. If you have anything you want to make sure gets discussed during the process that, where the councils review, then please let me know.
So we can let you know later if we have any comments.
Yes, you may.
Are there any comments or questions from the board?
No.
All right, so we will all provide feedback. Item 10, enrollment and participation in Charter Nation. The board will consider enrollment and adoption of participation in the CCSA-sponsored program, Charter Nation. By participation in this program, the board will consider adopting the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, Directory Information Policy and Opt-out Notice to be sent out each year with a parent notifications, parent rights information, presented by Raymond Jackson.
All right. So Charter Nation is a collection of several, well, let me stop for a second and say that OPA as a nonprofit can't, we can't advocate a particular candidate or that kind of thing. But Charter Nation formed as an organization to help keep charter families informed about events that are impactful to those charter families. And so by joining the Charter Nation organization, which again, several hundred schools are already a part of, we're saying, hey, we're not endorsing a particular candidate. We are going to put this out there, give parents a chance to opt out, and then basically our mailing list gets shared with the Charter Nation organization so that they can continue to send out relevant information to parents about issues that affect charter schools.
So the parents can opt out before they?
Yes.
Okay.
Before, during, and after. So at any point, they can elect to not participate.
But they'll be notified before that, hey, your mailing info is going to be shared with Charter Nation?
Yes, and you can opt out at that time if you like.
They will be notified by Charter Nation of anything that comes to them once they opt in. So this is a notice that allows them to opt out and before they get any notice, and then the directory information is shared with Charter Nation, and they have one more opportunity to say no thanks.
So the benefit is that it keeps the charter families informed about issues that are impactful to them in a way that we as a nonprofit cannot necessarily, right?
This draft of the directory information policy and opt-out notice was taken as a sample from CCSA, but legal counsel has done some revisions to it, so this has their approval.
So this is ready to go?
Yes, it is.
And Mr. Jackson, this is in response to some number of parents that have asked to get information about charter school election issues,
True.
And it's not a partisan-based, it's an issues-based organization, correct?
Right.
So it can't endorse a party, it's just pro-charter.
Charter Nation can endorse.
Yeah, and I think that's where they, being a separate organization, they can speak to an issue and say, hey, this is, they might say, let's say that you and I, and we're on agreement in everything, but let's just say that we weren't on a charter issue, right? We're on, so there's a charter issue that impacts the school, and you are against the charters in that way. They would present that and say, hey, Chairman Haney is doing something that's going to hurt charters in this way, right? So where OPA doesn't, we don't have that. We don't have that flexibility.
Okay.
But it's a way that we can spread the word about the, sort of galvanize the charter movement in a way that, we as OPA cannot.
Right. Is there any discussion? Well, I guess we got a motion first.
Can I make a motion?
You certainly
Yeah,
may. I
I'll
gotta
make
read
a-
it first, though, don't I?
Okay, read it.
Because there's two items.
Yep.
Item 3G10A, recommend the Board of Directors approve enrollment and participation in Charter Nation. And item 3G10B, recommend the Board of Directors approve Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, Directory Information Policy to be included with the annual parent notifications. Mr. Jackson, did you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve both 10A and 10B.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. Any discussion? Comments, questions?
Hey, I'm going to abstain from this one. I'm on the fence on this, so I'm
Okay.
just going to abstain.
Any additional, any reason why in particular you want to share, or just general?
Yeah, I just haven't had enough
Time.
to
Got it.
to digest it.
Fair enough. All right, the motion on the floor is to recommend we approve enrollment and participation in Charter Nation, and also approve Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act FERPA directory information policy to be included with the annual parent notification. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining?
That's just me.
This motion passes 3-0-1. Which brings us to our second to last item, Governance Handbook Agreements and/or agreements. The board will review and discuss the draft governance handbook and agreements as part of the ongoing board development, presented by Kathleen Doherty.
So this was originally presented to you on April 4th. And as a part of your governance training, the agreements that you make on how you are as a board, what your goals are, what your duties are, and how you make decisions. It is a draft form, and you'll see there are large components that are missing because those are discussions that you need to have with your new executive director. But I brought it forward just as that first step to take a look at how do we act together, what kind of communications do we have, and to really take a look at what are our jobs and how are we going to make decisions. So I'm asking you to take a look at it. That you can discuss it now, but to take a look at it, and I'm going to strongly recommend that as you move forward, you take a look at each piece through the next 2 to 3 meetings, so that when it's time to set your goals for your school and for your executive director, that you fill in the pieces and parts here that are missing.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this point?
I don't have anything substantive. I'm just excited to work on this.
Perfect. Anybody else? All right, that brings us to the moment you were all waiting for, which is item 4, adjournment.
First meeting.
Oh, that's right. Oh, no, I know. Everyone's excited to get the first one done. Recommend the Board of Directors adjourn the regular board meeting for May 24th, 2018. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? This motion passes. This regular meeting is adjourned at 10:35 p.m., but please stay tuned for the special meeting,
Right now.
Right now.
which will start now. Do I have to say, we say the pledge, allegiance and everything? Sure.
We just have to open the second meeting.
Why were we giving back the miners? We used to keep
All
them.
right.
You can keep if you want. She asked for it, so I don't know.
We probably should do it.
I don't give
It's good to stand up.
I just make myself.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the special meeting of the Board of Directors of Oxford Preparatory Academy, May 24th, 2018. 9 p.m., more or less open session. Meeting location, Oxford Preparatory Academy, South Orange County Campus, 23000 Via Santa Maria, Mission Viejo, California. Teleconference location, Oxford Preparatory Academy, Saddleback Valley Campus, 22882 Lumont Drive, Lake Forest, California, 92630. The public, including public attending the teleconference location, are invited to attend the board regarding items listed on the agenda. Comments on an agenda item will be accepted during consideration of that item or prior to consideration of the item in the case of a closed session item. Please turn in comment cards to the board secretary prior to the item you wish to speak on. Preliminary call to order, roll call. Mr. Jackson, Chair, Vice Chair, present. Priscilla Trichet, Secretary.
President.
Joshua Teeple, Treasurer.
Present.
Mary Campos, Member. Absent. Joseph Haney, Chairman. Present. Item 2, Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Face the flag. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beautiful. Let's move on to item 3, approval of agenda for special board meeting for May 24th, 2018.
I move to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This motion is passed. Second part, open session. A, discussion, information, action Item 1, recommendation to approve management liability insurance and supplemental coverage. The board is required to approve any expenditures that exceed $25,000. The management liability insurance and supplemental coverage effective June 1, 2018 is brought to the board for consideration. Item 1A, or item 2A1, recommend the board of directors approve management liability insurance and supplemental coverage with Access Insurance Company for a period of 14 months with a monthly premium of $3,218 per month. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Second. Is there any discussion on the insurance?
Nope.
Mr. Diaz? This is the,
I was just going to mention that this particular motion does have a matrix, and it includes both proposals. The one coming from, now I'm talking out of memory.
I'm not seeing puppies in the matrix.
Let me, give me 1 second, sorry. We actually have two proposals, one from, here it is, thank you very much. Oh, gee.
We have Aon and
Chubb and Access, there's three.
Well, Aon is the broker, but it's
Okay.
actually from
Chubb and
Access and
Access.
Chubb, exactly. And I'm sorry for this being so small, it's actually, you can see it on page 2 of this presentation, and it's this slide right here.
beautiful.
And basically what, there's two different options for each one. The very first column, you actually have our current policy as it stands, and then the different proposals between Chubb and Access. And the one that we're proposing is Access, and the reason why we are doing, I believe it's 14 months, the one that we're submitting the approval, is so it aligns with our current policies. So, thank you. So basically, it's to actually, that's why we're not doing the regular 12 months, but we're extending it just so it aligns in, with the other policies. And when it becomes due, it will align, and all of them are going to be renewed at the same time. And you don't have to see this twice.
Okay.
And the difference between one and the other is the coverage. One of them has the coverage of $100,000, and this one, the one that we're selecting, is $1 million. And that's the reason why, for a little bit more in the premium, we're actually getting a big bump on the coverage. Oh, yes, of course. That will definitely make our authorizers happy.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
No.
The motion on the floor is to approve management liability insurance and supplemental coverage with Access Insurance Company for a period of 14 months with a monthly premium of $3,218 per month. All those in favor, we have to do a roll call since it's,
Yes, you do.
all right. Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Shea?
Yes.
Mr. Teeple?
Yes.
And Mr. Haney, yes. This motion passes unanimously. Item 2, recommendation to approve revised Kyocera contract. The board is required to approve any expenditures that exceed $25,000. The revised Kyocera contract for printers and copiers, which is a reduction from the current contract, is brought to the board for consideration. Before we make a motion, Mr. Diaz, can you give us some background on that?
Yes, so Kyocera are the printers and copy machines that we have in both in the schools and also our office. And what we're doing is actually, what we're doing is there's several of those printers are actually in storage. So what we want to do is we want to send them back from storage instead of paying this monthly fee that we have been incurring, and of course replace that with also a copy machine. I'm sorry, that is going to be shared by the teachers instead of having color printers for every single teacher. So we're actually going to have some savings of $1,000 per month, roughly, and we won't incur those hefty fees in toner expenses, as of course with the usage of these very nice printers, but I think it's a little bit of an overkill.
So this document here, see this document that I'm holding up?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
This has two options, right? It says, which one of these are we currently paying here? Well, it says that there's two options. This is
So the
comparative.
new configuration
Mhm.
is on the right-hand side, that's what they're proposing.
Uh-huh.
And so on the left-hand side, I apologize, I didn't understand the question until I was looking right at it. We're currently paying $20,000, over $20,000
Mhm.
for copy costs.
Yeah,
each
and you're
month.
gonna drop it down to six,
We're-
what?
If we stay within our, copy
Budget?
budget,
Right.
We will drop it down to,
16,521.
right, however, yes, thank you, because this takes us down to, I took off my glasses. so now I can't see.
16,521.
Thank you, 16,521, because I asked for fewer color copies.
Okay.
We asked for fewer color
Okay,
copies.
so that's why it says it includes 285. This contract says 250.
Mhm.
And 116 color, this says 60. What I'm interested to understand is how we roughly halved the amount of copiers and we're only saving $1,000. Like, where's help me resolve that.
It doesn't actually half the amount of copiers.
Well, we were at 15 7551s and then we dropped to 8.
I can take a guess that a lot of it has to do with volume. There's a volume charge on the number of copies. That's probably not going to go down that much.
Well, but the old contract, there's a copy of that in here, and they were only at 5 cents for overage, but the numbers were higher.
I'm not talking but the base number of copies is still going to be about the same. So that's not going to change.
Oh, the images, the
Yeah.
number of images.
Yeah.
So they don't care if you have one printer, if it's doing 250,000 a month.
Right.
And is that
That's
number
my guess.
legitimate? That's a legitimate number, we do 250,000 a month?
I would
A
think so.
copy, okay. Thanks, Josh, I appreciate that.
I
I
lease a
appreciate it
copier,
too.
so-
Thank you.
Got it.
But the end result is we're saving several $1,000s per month.
It's actually not several, it's just $1,000.
$1,000. Okay.
Well, no, I think it goes from 19,117 to 16,521, so that's the several. Good.
If we stay within our,
Are we not gonna stay within the budget?
well, that's the plan. The plan is to stay within the budget, and we'll have to put some things in place to ensure that that happens. So, for instance,
Make
we've
Mr.
never
Conley
had
enforce it.
codes. Our teachers have never had to input codes. We'll have to limit the number of color copies that our staff makes. We'll have
Mhm.
to really ask people to think before they print things. And Kyocera will come out and do a training with staff to help them understand the processes that we'll have to put in place to ensure that we do have a savings and we're able to stay at that 16,000 point.
Okay.
Copiers are kind of a nightmare, sorry.
So the motion on the floor is to approve the revised Kyocera contract for $16,521.30 per month. Oh,
I'll move
sorry.
to do that.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, so the motion is to approve the contract 16,521.30 per month for 63 months. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? This motion passes. Now we get to the point that you were all really waiting for, especially Mr. Teeple, who's packed up neatly.
Ready to go.
Item 3, adjournment. Recommend the Board of Directors adjourn the board meeting for May 24th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
I move to do that.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those
Release the
opposed?
record.
4-0.